Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the January 2024 CEC 20 meeting. 6:01 p.m. I'll call the meeting to order. Joyce, can you take attendance, please?
Yes. We're gonna start.
Sure.
We're gonna start CEC 20 January 2024 month meeting. We're gonna do roll call. First, Steve Stowe.
Here.
John. Elizabeth. Joyce here. Mayfan. Here. Wendy here. Yanqing here. Maya. Maya is excused, right?
Excused.
Maya.
She's here. She just done.
Kevin.
Okay, and I'm just looking.
What has 7? However,
So we have 7 attending, but we have 6
in person.
in person. So right now, with 6 in person, that means we don't have an official in-person quorum. So no voting until we get a 7th person in person. So let's make a note of that.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
7. We got 7.
Oh, there's Elizabeth. So we are now at quorum. Okay, administrative announcements as at all of our meetings, we have interpretation in Arabic, Mandarin, and Spanish. Anyone wishing interpretation should see the interpreters' names in the participant list and should see video in the video of them on the participant screens. I will now have the interpreters give their instructions for the meeting. Arabic interpreters, could you introduce yourselves and give your instructions, please?
Yes, sir. Good evening. This is the Arabic announcement. السلام عليكم. معكم عادل عثمان لاستماع للغة العربية لهذا الاجتماع اليوم. فالرجاء بالاتصال الرقم 347-966-41114. رقم مرة أخرى هو 347-966-41114. وبعد ذلك يرجى إدخال الرقم الآتي وهو 588-747-371 يتبعه الهاشتاج أو رمز الشباك. الرقم مرة أخرى هو 588-747-371. شكرا لكم وليلة سعيدة. Arabic announcement has just been concluded.
Thank you. Mandarin interpreters, if you could please introduce yourself.
Good evening, everyone. This is Mandarin interpreter Ricky. How are you? So, 今天哪一位需要这个普通话的翻译服务的，请拨打347-966-4114，这个 ID 号码是318-420-061。我再重复，哪一位需要这个普通话的翻译服务的朋友，请拨打347-966-4114。这个 ID 号码是318-420-061。谢谢。Thank you very much. I finished.
Thank you. And could our Spanish interpreter please introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Spanish interpreter Molly. Para acceder a la interpretación en español por teléfono, marque el 347-966-4114 y ingrese el código 737-343-680, signo numeral. Repito, para acceder a la interpretación en español por teléfono, marque el 347-966-4114 y ingrese el código 737-343-680, signo numeral. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a reminder tonight to please try to speak slower than usual to allow the interpreters to keep up. And then before we begin the meeting, I just want to note we will have 2 public speaking sessions tonight. One will be 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting, and the second will be later in the meeting, immediately before the resolution is discussed and voted on. We're very pleased to be here at IS 201, the Madeleine Brennan School, and we have the school's color guard and a band to open the meeting. So can we get camera on that, Kevin? Okay.
It's your laptop.
Mute the laptop. Okay.
Here, let's. When you're ready.
So whenever you're ready, you guys start
Assembly stand. Assembly salute. Assembly pledge. One.
Thank you so much for your attending tonight and the wonderful music and presentation of the colors. So the agenda for tonight, Kevin, you're in a position to share that. As I mentioned, we're about to have a short public speaking session. That will be followed by our Director of School Safety, Mark Rampersand. He will be followed by 2 speakers on the class size law. First, Deputy Chancellor Daniel Weisberg, and from the Urban Institute, Matt Chingos. That will be followed by we're about to share it. That will be followed by our School Construction Authority requests, the annual process, report of superintendent. I will only have one quick comment for my council president report. Then a second public speaking session, resolution number 7, amend the class size law. And then that will conclude the meeting. The business meeting will immediately follow. We have a treasurer report, and potentially some other business to discuss, time permitting. And I do want to take a minute and just acknowledge there are a number of individuals here tonight. I just wanted to acknowledge, as I mentioned, our speakers. I'll introduce them at a later point. We're joined in person by State Assemblyman Lester Chang. I saw online representatives from Justin Brannan's office, Tony, Basil Kapitanakis from Assemblyman Michael Tenusis' office, Francis Brown from Senator Ewan Chu's office. I apologize if I'm missing some. I probably am, but I just haven't had a chance to scan the chat. I see Ariel Arroyo, our UFT representative. And anyway, just a few individuals we're glad to have join us, in addition to, as always, Superintendent Preto and his team, Deputy Superintendent Joe O'Brien, and others. Mark Rampersand, are you here yet, sir? And if you are, you can unmute and begin your comments. Kevin, do we see Mark Rampersand?
Yeah, I am here. Steve, are you?
Hey, Chief Rampersand, we're really pleased you could join us here at CEC 20 for our meeting tonight.
So first and foremost, let me just simply say I'm honored to share this space with all of you. And Steve, thank you for the invitation. I was prepared to do a presentation tonight, not knowing that there were so many people on the agenda to speak tonight, Steve. So I'm going to be respectful of the space, and I'm going to focus on the areas of which your team provided questions for, if that's okay. So I'll do a broad overview of some of the safety initiatives, talk specifically about some of the asks that came from your respective constituency. So I wanted to first of all introduce myself. I am Mark Rampersand. I am the Chief of Safety and Prevention Partnerships. And my primary responsibility is to offer safety and security to all of the students in our school system. And that not only includes the physical safety, but it's the emotional safety as well that basically encompasses the full safety of our young people. And I wanted to just share with you, as asked, a little overview of what falls under my direct purview as the Chief of Safety and Prevention Partnerships. So under the safety umbrella is our safety and security policies and practices, overall school safety plans, of which one of the questions that I received is about our emergency readiness that includes our general response protocols, of which I hope that all parents on this call tonight are familiar with. That's our lockdowns, evacuations, our shelter-ins, and our holds. Our Project Pivot initiative, where we have a number of CBO providers providing direct services to schools, ranging from arts and sports to mentoring, as well as safe passage and safe corridor. Mentoring programs, as well as our MBK initiatives, fall under my office purview. Our gang prevention and intervention supports and services, our partners, and one of the large sort of most popular questions that was asked is about our partnership with NYPD School Safety Division. And I will share a little bit about that relationship because there were specific questions there. In the area of school climate and culture, our Respect for All initiative, of which I am praying that all parents are aware of and all students are aware of. And this specifically covers our bullying and prevention, our social emotional learning, restorative practices, conflict resolution, the discipline code, which is suspensions and the hearing process. The LGBTQ supports student voice, my brother's keeper, just name a few. From the counseling perspective, we have the Comfort Dog Initiative, the gender equity, child abuse and maltreatment prevention, substance abuse, suicide prevention, crisis supports, and our central response teams, which is a group of social workers that we get to deploy to schools anytime there is an unfortunate incident that transpires in schools. And finally, the Public School Athletic League, PSAL. So that is a large array of responsibilities that fall under the direct purview of my respective office, just to give you a sense of what I'm responsible for, since that was one of the primary questions. One of the things that we are focused on this year in the area of safety and security is our partnership, our external partnerships, such as our family partnerships, working in collaboration with community, as it is a community responsibility to ensure safety and security for our school system. We want to really monopolize on our relationships with our parents, our local businesses, our student ambassadors, faith-based organizations, our elected officials, our partners in NYPD, and the school safety division. It is imperative that we establish all of these relationships in schools, as our schools are the epicenters of our respective communities. One of the again popular questions that was asked is about the relationship with our school safety division, specifically concerns around the shortfall of school safety agents within your respective districts, as well as throughout the city. So I'm going to briefly touch on that by simply starting out by reminding some and reiterating for others that the school safety agents are direct employees of the New York City Police Department. And as such, they are an integral part of our inner workings in our schools. As a reminder, school safety agents are not police officers. They are civilian uniformed members of service. And these school safety agents are sworn peace officers. And every school in our school system that falls under the direct purview of New York City Public Schools has at least one school safety agent. At least one school safety agent. Many of them have more school safety agents, but there's at least one school safety agent at every one of our schools. School safety agents are hired, trained, and deployed by our partners in the NYPD School Safety Division. However, we do advocate for our schools when there is a need for additional school safety agents. We partner with the School Safety Division in training, and we work with them to deploy when necessary, especially when there are threats of incidents occurring in and around schools. One of our other partnerships with the NYPD is the work that we sort of aggressively made come to fruition, and that is our weekly conversations with precinct commanders and principals. So we thought fitting, I should say the mayor thought it important to have one of the greatest stakeholders, which is our precincts, in connection with our schools to create a bridge conversation. And it's not only for the purposes of the need for NYPD support, but it's for the purposes of creating community. Our police officers are our partners in community, and we want to invite them into our schools for our positive events such as graduation and student-led positive events, as well as if there is a need to have a police presence because there is a threat or something looming negatively around our schools. So outside the weekly precinct calls, we have a monthly a call with our superintendents, with the commanding officers, the borough commanding officers of the precinct, so that superintendents can continue to advocate on behalf of their school principals whenever the commanding officer of those precincts is not reachable. So it is a regular conversation that we're having on behalf of schools. I know that there were a number of questions asked about additional school safety agents for the schools within District 20. And as we continue to advocate for all schools throughout the city, we are continuing to advocate for schools in District 20 as well. School safety is experiencing a shortfall in schools and the number of school safety agents. I don't want to speak for another agency, but I will continue to say that we are working aggressively within school safety division to get their employment numbers up, so that we can continue to do exactly what we set out to do, is to help ensure that one of the key stakeholders exist in all of our schools, and we're able to provide the highest level of safety and security possible in this space. Just rest assured that we hear each and every one of the principals on the line, and we hear you clearly. and we continue to advocate on a daily basis. We are communicating by way of our borough safety directors with our principals whenever there is a concern expressed about a school safety agent need for a school. We work collaboratively again with our partners in the commanding officers of school safety to ensure that that school is adequately covered, even if it means just for the day, because there may be a threat of a concern regarding safety at a school. One of the other questions that was asked is about our door locking system. I am proud to say that we are well on our way for the installation of which we call the safer access system. It's a door locking system meant to help fortify our existing safety practices. Phase 1 of this project has commenced on June of 2023 with 753 pre-K and K-5 buildings across the city. This door locking system allows the single school safety agent to monitor, to better conduct visitor control procedures from the main desk. It's a two-way camera system that allows for the school safety agent to visually see who is seeking access to the school. It allows the school safety agent to communicate with the guests as well as grant them access from the main desk. And that person will then walk over to the school safety desk and then follow all of the visitor control procedures. All of our buildings will be equipped with this new technology by December of 24. December of 24, right? We are in the first phase. We'll be approaching the second phase. But as it relates specifically to District 20, there are 34 buildings that fall within the Phase 1 category. 21 of those buildings are either in progress or already fully functional with the system in place. So that was one of the questions that was raised, and I just wanted to make sure that I did, in fact, cover that area. The school safety agents have the ability, by way of translation services provided through the school or through the application that every school safety agent possesses on their cell phone. They can pick up the phone and call for translation services, or they can utilize the application, of which they have 5 of, on their NYPD department issued cell phone. Every school safety agent has a cell phone equipped with this translation feature on it. And it's super important that you understand this. So if you ever go to a school and you find out that's not the case, there is a process by which you should escalate those concerns. But so far, we haven't had any complaints or any concerns in that respective space. So thank you very much. One of the other questions that was asked was about our district safety plan. New York State requires that all public schools develop a safety plan. And this is in regards to crisis intervention, emergency response, and management. New York City Public Schools, we are identified as one district. Therefore, in the district safety plan, which is reviewed and updated annually and discussed at a public hearing, each one of our schools is also responsible for creating a safety plan individual for that respective school that is done on an annual basis. In the beginning of the year, parents who are the PTA president, parent coordinator, they sit with the principal at the beginning of the year to help develop that safety plan, which should not change much from year to year, with the exception of if there is any construction changes on the building or if we introduce any new policy, but it should definitely outline the enrollment, the number of students enrolled, the number of students with disabilities, the number of staff people that require special supports and services. It's important that as a parent, you know that there is a parent version of the school safety plan. It will not encompass all of the information such as student-specific information, but it will provide you the necessary information you need as a parent to understand what the school is doing to prepare for an actual emergency in a school. I am hoping that each and every parent on this call has had an opportunity to receive some level of training for our emergency general response protocols, and you are clear on what is happening in the event of an emergency. We provide professional learning opportunities to our principals and school staff on an annual basis, and all school staff are required to participate in a mandated emergency readiness training to ensure that they're all prepared to address any issue of an emergency should that emergency arise. At the start of each year, school leaders must ensure that all of our classrooms are equipped with the common language posters that indicate what you do in the event of an actual emergency, whether it's a lockdown, shelter-in, or an evacuation. There are clear posters that outline what each individual who is responsible for the students in our schools must do. There are many resources available to our schools as it relates to emergency readiness to help them prepare. We have age-appropriate and designed videos that teachers can show for our young people. We have a bunch of resources, print resources available for our schools in case they run out of the items throughout the building. And our borough safety directors are always available to provide for our principals tabletop exercises. They also do them for parents, for those who are interested, and they also do them for school staff throughout the year. So just a point of information for you. One of the other questions that was asked was about our bullying policy in schools, and I want to make sure that I touch on that. Steve, please keep me honest with time. I don't want to go over my time, so please keep me honest in the time space. I want to be sure to be clear that New York City Public Schools is committed to providing a safe, supportive learning environment for all of our students. All of our students. Bullying or harassment of any kind is never accepted in our schools. New York City Public Schools comply with the Chancellor's Regulation A832, which outlines the policy and addresses student-to-student harassment, discrimination, intimidation, and bullying. This regulation is aligned with the Dignity for All Students Act, right? Most of you know it as DASA, and it's the New York State regulation. On an annual basis, our staff and students participate in a training on this Chancellor's regulation, which outlines the process of addressing incidents of harassment, discrimination, intimidation, and bullying, right? And it is important that all of the parents understand that there's a respect for all liaison in each and every one of our schools. There is also a process by which parents can use a QR code to report bullying directly from their cell phones. This information is available for you at your child's school. You don't have to go into the school directly to report bullying. The way by which the system works is you use the QR code, you report the incident of bullying. Immediately, the principal receives an ORS report that is generated by the parent. That email, the principal receives an email that's indicating that they received a bullying complaint. They have a certain amount of time by which they have to respond to the parent and simply say that we are in receipt of your allegation of bullying. And someone will be in touch with you within 5 business days to discuss the outcome of the investigation. They are required to also provide a safety plan for the student who is bullied. And that includes a regular check-in, a guidance counselor's check-in to ensure that that young person is safe throughout the course of the day and that they are separate and apart from the young person of which they are accusing of bullying. Students and family can report bullying and harassment not only through the means of the online QR code. You can submit your complaints in any language to NYC.enet@edu bullying reporting, or via our New York City schools account at schoolsaccount.nyc. Calling New York City Public Schools, we have a helpline that's operational Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. And the number is 718-935-2288. Say it again, 718-935-2288. Someone will take your complaint and they will be sure to give you a response number in reference to that complaint, and they will have the school follow up with you. You can also email the Office of Safety and Youth Development at respectforall at schools.nyc.gov. We also want you to be reminded that telling a school staff member or contacting the school Respect for All liaison is another way by which you can report bullying, harassment, or intimidation in your schools. It is important that we are reminding young people that every adult in the school is available to them for any concerns that they may have. They should not remain silent. They should not feel intimidated, and they should utilize the supports of all of the adults in our schools. Steve and the rest of the CEC members, I appreciate you offering me this time this evening. And Steve, I will remain for any questions that you may have, or you can send those questions directly to me and I'll be sure to give you a response.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Do you have time for just a couple quick ones now from council members?
Yep.
Great. I just wanted to lead off with one. Sorry, we're just getting our tech set up here. Kevin, should I have? Am I good? Okay.
Okay, sorry, I'm trying to.
I'll give a quick one. Mark, there are certain situations that I know you're familiar with where we have the policies in place, but there are some times when it's just really tough for parents to get comfortable with what's going on, what's being done, what they're being told. For example, let's say you have a child who's getting repeatedly bullied and the school says, we're doing everything we can. We're doing everything we can. Let's say, for example, and this is an actual example that I've heard from a parent. The accused bully has been recommended for for additional services, but the parents have refused. And in that case, the situation as far as working with the accused bully, nothing is going anywhere essentially. So then it becomes then the child who's been bullied and their parents feel more pressure to transfer, right? To move out of the class or, potentially out of the school. That just seems wrong, right? It seems wrong that in a situation where an accused bully is where their parents are sort of not seeing eye to eye with what the school wants to recommend, it seems wrong that to fall on the child who's being bullied, that they would have to make a move. What can we do about this?
Yeah, Steve, let me tell you, this one is a tough one for the chancellor, right? This is the one that continues to gnaw at it, right? As you've heard him say publicly, he has no space in his heart for bullies, right? And to hear from the first parent who says that my only recourse to bullying is to transfer my child out of school, Chancellor immediately pulled myself, the first deputy chancellor, Dan Weisberg, and others into a meeting to say, we have to figure this out, right? One of the things that we know exists at the hands of our school, and yes, it takes some work to come to fruition, and it's particularly sensitive to students with IEPs, is the involuntary transfer process, right? One of the things that you talked about, what you stated, Steve, is continued bullying. Right? There's no space for continued bullying. And while the quickest process is for families to opt to move their child out, that is not the process that we want to see come to fruition, especially when a young person is thriving in their school community. So one of the avails that principals have is the involuntary transfer process. There are certain steps that need to be taken in order to make that come to fruition. But for a young person that requires additional services and the family is not providing said services, there are also the supports from external agency partners such as ACS that are tapped in to ensure that parents are properly making sure that young people are properly receiving the services that they need. So the involuntary transfer is available to our principals. It does take work in order to make come to fruition, and that is just proving the interventions that you've provided to support not only the victim, but the aggressor as well, right? And there's a step-by-step process for that to come to fruition. I could share that to you, Steve, in writing.
Sure, thanks. I'd like to allow other council members to ask questions. Any other council members have questions for Mr. Rampersad? Go ahead, Kevin.
Do I need to unmute? You can press the bar and then just hold the bar down.
And Kevin, we're not hearing you.
I receive. Okay. Hear me now? Yep. I hope you can hear me now. I
Yep.
just want to echo what Steve talked about it, because just the last weekend, I received email, social media message from parents say the parent come to me directly say how to transfer my kids from this school to another school. Both of them, actually, both the mom and the father did not even talk about bullying. They just talk about, I want to transfer my kid. So they kind of gave up to say how to resolve the bullying situation. I find out the bullying only after we dive into the conversation, we realized his son was beaten up by a group of kids in the school for a couple times. And then they did raise this question to school, I think. I'm not very sure how
Yep.
they raise it. And then the last incident, the son was running from the bus station to another facility, not school facility, another outside facility, and the security has to call the police for the kids. So basically what I want to say is the parents kind of given up on the current mechanism the school have to stop the bullying. They were just asking me like, what's the fast way to transfer my son from this school to another one, to any school that's reasonably okay?
So Kevin, thank you for that, right? But Kevin, if you would get my information on my email address from Steve, I'll be more than happy to talk with you and talk with that family around that specific and get more specifics regarding that incident, right? As you shared, right? It sort of has different tentacles to that particular situation, but I would be more than happy to work with that family or any other family that is having a problem as it relates to safety and security in their school, and or questions about the transfer process. And for me, my first question is, why transfer, right? And if they're saying that the school is not doing everything that they can, then there is a need for a conversation, a transparent conversation as it relates to what actually was done, right? Because in some cases, Kevin, the family may not feel like the disciplinary sanction was stringent enough, right? And if my child was bullied, I can tell you right now, and I want the universe, right? But there are parameters as it relates to what a principal can do as it relates to the incident versus the disciplinary sanction, right? And so I would be more than happy to talk with you, Kevin, and even the family about what transpired, because even if the family transferred out, we still have the bully in that school, and we need to address it, or the group of students in that school, to ensure that another student is not a victim. So I'd appreciate a conversation in that space, Kevin.
Tamara, did you want to ask a question?
I actually have a couple. Okay, I believe the city council has mandated school agents to go through therapeutic crisis intervention, which is an attempt to comply with more restorative practices when it comes to interactions with our students. Is that happening now? And is there an annual training for that?
So I don't know that that's a city council mandate because therapeutic crisis intervention is in fact a form of training that the school safety agents get. The therapeutic crisis intervention training is specifically to our educators. However, we've modified the TCIS for school safety agents, and all new school safety agents receive as they come through the academy. But I'm not sure if you are truly familiar with the workings of the school safety agents who are in our schools every day as long as school is in session. So the hardest part is pulling them out for training, right? So we do it during the course of the breaks and sometimes during the course of the summer. But remember, our schools are in session. So we have focused on the newer agents that are coming out, ensuring 100% of those agents are trained, and we catch as catch can to train the other agents on an in-service basis for therapeutic crisis intervention as well as restorative justice.
And my next question, you said about the safety plan, that the principal and the parent coordinator are part of the plan as well as the PTA president. And I've been a PTA president for a number of years, and I've never had like any input into the safety plan. A lot of times, like I didn't even know there was a safety plan. And I still know there are PTA presidents that have not even been to a safety meeting, that had no idea there was a safety meeting, or that they had to do an annual safety town hall. I know schools that never had a safety town hall. The parents no idea what it is. The PTA has no idea what it is. How do we go about getting that information to the PTA in general?
So information is key, Tamara. You now know me. So I would definitely love to talk to you more about that, right? It is unacceptable to Chancellor's regulation that clearly requires not only that our schools are having a monthly safety committee meeting, but one of those safety committee meetings has to be a town hall meeting open to the merchants, faith-based, our community as a whole, as an opportunity for you to understand what is happening in the school outside of hearing some of the safety concerns that may or may not exist in the community, but hearing from the school principal about the great things that are happening in our school community as well. And as it relates to the PTA president being optional in this meeting, I will be more than happy to share with you the full checklist. The PTA president and the parent coordinator, as well as the student representative, are members of the safety committee. And these meetings should not happen without an invitation administered to all stakeholders. So Tamara, I would welcome you in that space as well. If you would be so kind, I'll be more than happy to talk to you more about this. And I'd even be willing to do a full training for PTA presidents in the District 20 area around the safety committee process as a whole. It is important that you understand that you have a voice in that space. And there's actually a line for endorsement. So it's important that you know what your responsibilities are in that place.
Great, thank you. Any other council members?
Oh, I want to ask a question. It has an echo.
No, it's because it's good now.
Okay. All right, Mark, I wanted to ask you, are you replacing safety agents with single door locks? Because safety agents, we still need them in our schools in case of a real emergency happening.
I'm with you. Is that Elizabeth?
Yes.
I'm with you in that. These door locking systems they're not replacing school safety agents. Actually, we need school safety agents in order to operate the door locking system. The door locking system is just helping to enhance our safety practices, giving us a better handle on our visitor control procedures.
Unmuted. It's unmuted.
Hi, sir. I have a question in regards to School Chancellor Rec A449, the safety transfer, and A450 involuntary transfer. It seems to me that every time a victim gets bullied, they get victimized by that bully and by the system. They want you to transfer your child out of that school and nothing happens to that bully. Okay. Or they get 1 day suspension or 3 day suspension. So I think something has to be done in regards to the school chancellor regs. And if there's any serious physical injury or physical injury, I think something needs to be done when it's not just the innocent victim that is constantly have to leave the classroom or they have to constantly get a transfer. It's involuntary. You could use an involuntary transfer when something comes out like that. And it's possible, it's becoming a problem. Kids don't want to go to school anymore. And the situation is, it's not fair for that victim because that victim is constantly getting victimized, and there has to be something done with the school chancellor regs, and we have to figure something out as a whole. That's one thing. Number two, with the school safety agents, some schools have 1,300 students with over 140 teachers, right? With all the new implements that you guys are going to have, which is great, very, safe. How is that one school safety agent going to handle 1,300 children, do a canvas of the area, a 4-block radius of a school, because usually a school is about 4 blocks, watch the cameras, alert the door, and look at everything at one time, one agent. Everybody's short in the system, I understand that. I also heard that school safety agents are going to get trainees where they're 18 years old, and DCAS is trying to get a system where they're waiting for a number to hire them. I get it. But with all these new implements, one agent is not sufficient enough for 1,300 kids. And something needs to be done for that as well. So if you could just answer those questions for me.
Yeah. So first of all, Kevin, thank you very much for not only your passion, but your advocacy in this space. You actually share the same passion and advocacy as the chancellor of our school system, myself, as well as our first deputy chancellor who's on the line, right? The question about parents being forced to opt to transfer their child out of school versus allow for the system to properly discipline, right? That is a subject of which I spoke to earlier. We share that same concern for any parent who feels that they're at a space where they have to transfer their child, right? You pointed out the involuntary transfer process, of which is available to all of our schools. And one of the things that we are going to be doing going forward is re-educating all of our schools about the bullying policy, the discipline policy, and overall the expectations to respond to all incidents in our schools, right? So we hear it from all sides. We're either suspending too much or not suspending enough, right? And so you'll get the bully is suspended 1 day versus the bully is suspended for 30 days. And for some people, that's not enough, right? So we want to make sure that we strike a delicate balance. At the same time, ensuring safety and security for all students in our school system, not some, right? I don't want any parent to feel like the system is not doing enough, that I need to transfer my child out of school, right? And I personally will invest my space and time to have my staff work with those parents and work with that school to make sure that they're properly disciplining, right? The discipline has a range, right? We're talking about name calling versus physical confrontation, right? And so the disciplinary sanction is going to range differently in that space, right? And so I appreciate your advocacy in that on this subject, and note that we are paying close attention because we're hearing this, much more, right? And I've investigated 3 cases myself within the last month of December, and they weren't quite what was reported, right? So it was basically, and I'll use the term loosely, it was they wanted to kill the gnat with a sledgehammer, right? And I don't ever want to minimize anybody's concern as it relates to bullying, but throwing the kid out for name calling, for one name calling is, right? The measurement, it just doesn't measure out, right? So there is some of that too, Kevin, that we have to be aware of, but we also need to be aware of any parent who's feeling like nothing is happening, right? There's an escalation path. And if They don't feel like the school is doing something, they escalate to the superintendent. Every principal has a superintendent, right? The superintendent has a team of people who will step in and address appropriately. And my office is always available for any of these specific cases where a parent has a concern and they don't think it's being treated properly. As it relates to agents, Kevin, we are the external agency partners. We work in conjunction and collaboration with school safety. One of the things that I want to remind every parent on this line is our school safety agents are a partner in this work. Safety and security is the responsibility of every adult in our building. That includes the guy who operates the restaurant across the street, the corner store, the church down the street, community partners and volunteers. It is a collective responsibility. And yes, Kevin, I agree with you. One school safety agent in a school with 1,300 kids is a tremendous responsibility, but just be reminded, every teacher, custodial staff, kitchen worker, paraprofessional, school aide, assistant principal, deans, and others all have a responsibility of ensuring safety and security in our schools for our young people. Many of our schools have been operating with one school safety agent from the start of time. Others, because of the volume in the school, require more. But we are working aggressively with school safety to try to get these numbers up. To get a second school safety at every one of our elementary schools first and foremost. And then we're working toward our middle schools to get additional agents. But for right now, our focus is getting that second agent. And as it relates to the agent trainee, there's not a timeline for that to come to fruition as of yet, Kevin. And when there's a final from school safety, we'll be more than happy to share out with the districts.
Thank you so much, sir.
All good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on now, but this was a great conversation. It was great to meet you at our meeting, and I know all of our members and members of the public really appreciated you coming out here. And it's an opener. There's a lot of follow-ups to a lot of issues that were raised. We had a ton of comments in the chat, but thank you for coming to District 20 tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for the invite. Everybody have a great night.
Take care. Yep. You mute that. We'll now move on to the opening, the 10-minute public speaking session. We're going to have the individuals who are here in person go, and we'll go to everyone online later. And then first, I wanted to ask Assemblyman Chang, did you want to start off with a few quick comments? Of course.
Well, thank you very much. Education Committee, I will reintroduce class size and the class size again. Last year they now trying to do this again. Give the time for higher education because of language we have. Some time to figure out how to implement class size. But I don't have that. I will introduce that again. And second is I just came from my constituents whose last time we had a huge rain was I was coming back from Albany. So there is a constituents, branch growth, they call it house. So just want to remind anyone you can follow in the city, you have many days to follow away. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And you're a regular at our meetings or someone from your office, we do appreciate it. Now we'll go to there are 4 individuals persons signed up for public speaking, 2 minutes each. And we will, if you could just come forward and take the microphone when your name is called. Our first speaker is Christina Collins. Do you need the mic? It's up to you.
Can people online hear me if I didn't use it? Sure. So, good everybody. I'm Christina Collins. Thanks, Steve. Steve and I were both members of the class size working group this year. And the working group was made up of dozens of people from around the city talking through what's a challenging issue, right? This class size law really started about 20 years ago with the Campaign for Fiscal Equity, which found that students in New York City and other places were being systematically denied the full adequate education that was guaranteed to them by the state constitution. So it was a 20-year fight to get the state foundation aid that our kids were told, that our families were told that our kids deserve. And the class size law that was passed a couple years ago, the purpose was really to make that law real. Class size was part of the campaign for fiscal equity. New York City class sizes have historically been among the largest in the state. And certainly, and this is something really personal for me that I've seen, what I see is class size, you know, there's evidence of it having positive academic effects, but also what we're hearing, particularly post-pandemic, is that even kids who are academically doing okay, they aren't feeling seen, right? They are coming back from the pandemic with really challenging mental health issues, this concern about going to school, about these bullying issues that we're hearing about. And what we're hearing from our parents, our teachers, our students themselves, is that smaller classes really assist with kids across the board, not just in those academic senses, but also in that sense of being seen and heard and seen as an individual. So the class size working group, again, there were a lot of challenging discussions. Steve and I were on a lot of subcommittees together, had a lot of conversations about budget over the years. I know we're going to be hearing from Matt later. And I know that Steve was part of the minority report authors who have recommended a 20-year rollout and changes to the state law. Sure. And so I just want to say our kids, I don't want to wait another 20 years. I don't want to wait another generation. And so I hope during the vote tonight, you'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Stanley Ng.
Okay, so you need a microphone?
Do you want it?
Can you hear me there?
I can hear you well, perfect. It's
You
better
can
without
hear
the
me.
microphone. Yep.
Okay. Good evening, District 20. My name is Stanley Ng, and I'm here today to represent the newly elected councilwoman, Susan Wong. Hear me okay? Now, I just want to say our council district covers 3 school districts, 15, 20, and 21. I just want to let you know also our temporary office address is 2015 Spillville Avenue. Now, this morning was my very first day of financial training at the city council. And I learned all about capital plans and discretionary funds. I will be reaching out to every principal in our council district to talk about their needs and what they have in mind. I also will be working with the SEA people and the borough president. We will also be reaching out to the PTA people to find out what they need in terms of discretion and see if we can fulfill some of it. And the last thing I want to let you know was I just got an email from the Brooklyn Borough president yesterday saying that they will be doing a 1-for-1 match up to $750,000 for our council district. Other than that, I just want to say I look forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Stanley. Our next speaker is Yatin Chu. Mike. Yep.
Hi, good evening. My name is Yatin Chu. I'm a public school parent in South Brooklyn. I want to say right off the bat, I wholeheartedly support the resolution to amend the class size law. District 20 has 32,000 children in our K-8 grade, and only 27% of our classrooms are at or below the cap right now. We are a top performing district, and that's why we have parents that want to live here and go to our schools. And class size, even though they're large, don't seem to be deterring parents from wanting to come here and living here. With all things being equal, if you ask a parent whether they want smaller class sizes, they'll probably say yeah. But this is about trade-offs. And as a parent who have a child in a district like District 20, where we are facing some big issues. The working group that I believe Ms. Collins spoke about have recommended to cap enrollment when there are no space in the school. Now, from what I see, there are about 2,000 seats that are being built right now in progress. And the school construction authority has not disclosed any additional seats in the next 5 years. So while I think most parents would appreciate lower class sizes, we still want to send our kids to local schools and not be capped out and sent to districts where they do have room, like ones in central Brooklyn, such as District 23 and District 17, District 16. Look, if we don't amend the law and they cap our class sizes, our kids will have to be bused to these districts. And honestly, even the kids that do get a lottery number to stay in their local schools, the fewer children there will be less budget for the things that our kids love and our parents want. So please support the amendment to the class size law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And
Our final speaker for the first public speaking session
is Stephen Mahoney.
Too much feedback. Can you hear me well enough from here? I had an opportunity to use your bathroom, and I think there's a little less privacy in the boys' bathrooms than the girls, and also a little less equity. I don't know what the ratio is in the students. There's 8 urinals and 2 stalls in the boys' bathroom, 8 stalls for the girls. I think both the boys and girls deserve the same amount of privacy. That's going to help you perhaps with some bullying. And if there's any LGBTQ issues, there's privacy in a stall in both rooms. I know schools construction with the new schools, I don't know if that's being addressed. But I think that both genders deserve the same amount of privacy in the bathroom. This is how it used to be in the men's room with the urinals. But I think if you have stalls for both boys and girls, it affords them privacy and dignity. And when I went to school, the bathroom was a location of body shaming and bullying. So you might want to take that under consideration to have stalls for both genders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. You can unmute yourself.
Are there any other, for in-person speaking, people that are here, I saw you, I'm just curious, is there anyone else in person who would like to speak publicly? Because we do try to prioritize if you're in person, you make the time to show up. Just the one, I think we can allow one more public speaker. So we're going to take one more public speaker in person and then we'll move on.
So.
Yeah.
And the speaker is Yifang Chen.
Do you need it?
Sure.
It sounds better without it, that's why.
Everyone can hear me, right? So first of all, I want to echo everything Yatin said, but for this section, I want to talk about the bullying incident. So my name is Yifan Chen. I'm also a previous CC20 member, as many of you know. And I have children attending the public school in this district. The recent bullying incident that actually took place in this IS-201 that escalated into violence has really left me worried about my children's safety in school. As an immigrant who came here for high school, I've personally experienced bullying. Any incident of bullying is one too many. And there's statistical data that's showing school bullying can turn into criminals on the street. School bullies can turn into criminals on the street. It's high time we implement consequences and measures to prevent bullying. Without appropriate actions, misconduct goes unchecked. While I recognize the importance of PII, private and identifiable information, let's not really use this as excuses to avoid implementing necessary disciplinary actions, such as principal suspensions and superintendent suspensions. In this, I specifically refer to the incidents of IS 201. At that time, I did not learn about there is principal suspensions, and furthermore, there is something called superintendent suspension that could have taken place a lot earlier. And I also encourage parents who have experienced bullying, use Mr. Mark represents information. Well, if there's a bullying case, you file a bullying report on the website. You reach out to the principal and you reach out to the community leaders within the Chinese community, and we'll be like happy to address the issues if there's any obstacle. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any opposition if we do one more public speaker? 2
Hi,
minutes.
my name is Ken Lee.
Hold on 1 second. Let me just. Go ahead, sir.
Okay. Hi, my name is Ken Lee. I'm a parent, and first of all, I support CEC 20 resolution about the class size 2, and I really, still against like a bullying stuff happen, but this thing happened about last year September, and I still not seeing anything you guys doing in the school. What is solution for this bullying, happen? And I don't see any like security a team you be built, and you still here to talking about funding, and you're gonna cut the funding for the school. I don't understand. You should not doing that. We're not gonna be discussion about school funding and the cup and the. It is not a time you guys are here to say anything. You got not doing anything come up. I don't see anything come up. Okay, till now. So what is solution you guys gonna do? What is the security agent? What you gonna hire security agent? I don't think you have. What are you guys gonna do next?
We don't have back and forth. This is just public speaking. But we hear everything you're saying. It's just superintendent.
Yeah, it's bullying stuff every day happen, and it feel like a really reason, to our people.
Yeah.
It's unfair. I'm come here. I'm so angry about that, because we've been working on this so hard, and we help for the Miss May to drop the charge. And what are you guys doing? What are you guys gonna do for this?
Yeah, 2 minutes. Speak.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I
Thank
want
you.
to see what is the solution you guys gonna need. I want to see something happen here.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna disagree. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all our public speakers. And I do apologize to the other speakers who are waiting. We are running behind, but First Deputy Chancellor will now pivot to the class size law speakers. First Deputy Chancellor Weisberg, are you on?
I am on. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, President Stowe. I want to thank you for your service. Both the CEC president, want to thank all the council members for their service. We could not operate as a school system without the selfless service of people like Steve Stowe and his colleagues, and Steve gets certainly an extra gold star, or should get an extra gold star for, as one of the speakers mentioned, serving on the class size working group, and not only serving on the group, but contributing not just to the many public meetings that happen of the group, but being one of the authors of a minority report presenting some different point of view than the majority report. So we really appreciate that service. I don't, Steve, want to take up a lot of time just speaking at you. I'd rather turn it over to the council for questions. But I will say briefly this: class size law was passed. The goals, I think, and the chancellor thinks, and the mayor thinks, are laudable. They are great goals. There are many classrooms in the city, including many in District 20, that are overcrowded, and that's a problem. I've had my own kids in overcrowded classrooms, and there isn't a parent out there who would not, if you could have it, have their child get more personalized attention in a smaller class. And so we need to work very hard in places like District 20 and other places around the city to do everything we can to lower class size. So a really good goal, particularly in the early grades, as your council resolution correctly points out, where the research is more robust about the benefits of much smaller class sizes. So the goal is right on target. The thing that is problematic about the law, which by the way was passed in the way that many laws are passed in Albany and other state capitals, without hearings, without any analysis of impact or hearing from experts, without analysis of the fiscal impact of it, without, frankly, any mechanism, any required mechanism for the sort of local input that you all are providing in District 20 and in many districts around the city. So what the chancellor did was set up the class size working group, which I think, Steve, you'll agree, a very diverse array of stakeholders who absolutely had different opinions about this really important issue, to try to get as much input as possible into how to implement this law. And I think the findings and the recommendations of both the majority report and the minority report reflect, I think, one common theme, and that is that this law does require some potentially very painful trade-offs in order to implement. So for those who don't know, it requires that 20%, an additional 20% of classrooms in each of its 5-year phase-in meet the new caps for class sizes. So this year, we had to show that at least 20% of the classrooms across the city met the caps. We were able to do that. We are in full compliance with the law. The state education department has signed off and certified that. Next year, next school year, we'll have to be at 40%. Year after that, 60, and then 80, and then 100. There are only a few ways that you can reduce class size. If you have additional classroom space, you can hire additional teachers and open additional classes. And that will allow you to reduce the number of students in each class. The estimate of the Independent Budget Office is that to hire enough teachers to comply with the class size law, we will require additional funding of up to $1.9 billion, billion with a B, over and above the increased foundation aid that one of the speakers alluded to earlier that we're very grateful for, $1.9 billion. That money can either come through an additional allocation from the state or potentially, I guess, the federal government, or from reallocating resources to pay for those teachers. We are not getting additional funding. That's not in the pipeline at this point. It would require, in order to hire those teachers, reallocating resources from schools where the vast, vast majority of funding already goes, that are going to things like after-school programs or mental health programs or art programs or school social workers, et cetera, to hire these teachers. That's just a fact. That's math. The other ways that you can reduce class size are to build more classes. If, like in many schools in District 20, there is no additional classroom space, that is something that School Construction Authority is always committed to doing. And for the next 5-year capital plan, which goes into effect next year, absolutely, we should be looking at South Brooklyn, District 20, to see how we can add additional capacity, building annexes, building new buildings. By the way, all of us live in New York City. We know that it's the greatest city in the world. One thing we don't have a lot of is space, and certainly not space that's easy to purchase. But we need to do that. That's another way to do it. The School Construction Authority has estimated that the cost of adding enough classrooms in places where the class sizes don't meet the caps in the law to comply fully would cost up to $30 billion. It's just a fact, $30 billion in capital funds. The entire 5-year capital plan last time was about $20 billion for everything, for maintenance, for putting a new roof on a building, for the boiler repair, everything. The entire 5-year capital plan was $20 billion. So that just gives you a sense. And then finally, and I'll stop with this, the other way, which one of the speakers alluded to, and Steve and his colleagues in the minority report alluded to, and in the majority, this was a recommendation for the schools that are over the class size caps. You can centrally limit the number of new students enrolling in that school. And that would be true, that would have to be true for zone schools. There are zone schools, as you all well know, elementary schools, middle schools that are above the caps. You could say even to parents in that zone that not everybody can enroll their child in the school. For high schools that in many parts of Brooklyn and Queens also have large class sizes, you could say we're going to limit. This would be true for specialized high schools. This would be true for many of the most high demand screened high schools. We're going to have to cut the incoming class by, potentially 40, 50%. These are all, these things we will have to do, and we will do to comply with the law. We are very clear. We are going to be in full compliance with this law. What we are doing is the chancellor is doing, the mayor is doing, is being very clear and transparent to parents, to families, to students, that this is what compliance with the law will require. So listen, the class size working group was an important step in what I think is critical engagement on this really high stakes issue. It's not going to be the last engagement. We are going to continue to work with our state elected officials. We're going to continue to work with our elected parent leaders. And we hopefully are going to come up with a resolution that limits the painful trade-offs that we've been talking about here. But that does provide relief on class size in those places where it is a major, major challenge. So with that, Mr. President, I'll turn it back over. I have some time. Excuse me. I have some time if the council or anybody else has questions or comments.
Great. Thank you so much, Dan. I just want to lead off with one. If you could just elaborate, I think for me, the working group, it was a very educational process. I learned a ton in all those months we worked together. One of the most interesting presentations I thought was I believe it was someone from the human resource group of the DOE talking about the market for teachers and how difficult it is on any given year just to replace the teachers that retire or move on for various reasons, and sort of what the market would look like for hiring. I think now the estimate is 10 to 12,000 new teachers, and how challenging that could be, especially in certain subjects, special education, bilingual, math, science. Just one point I've made several times is that the state of California tried a class size reduction initiative, and they had it for a number of years, and then it went away. And an analysis done after that showed that a big part of any gains from smaller class sizes were offset entirely by a reduction in teacher quality. The number of teachers they had to hire sort of offset. It essentially made the program, it sort of nullified the benefits of the program. Can you just comment on sort of the market for teachers and sort of the outlook for hiring 10 to 12,000 new teachers?
Yeah, no, I mean, Steve, I think you said it well. And by the way, I neglected to say hello to Dr. Preto, Superintendent. Always good to see you. Thank you always for your service. I'm sure Dr. Preto has thoughts on this, but no, I think you captured it well. And I will say, New York City, I mean, before I came back to the New York City public schools, I spent about a dozen years working with districts all over the country. We are in much better shape in New York City, both in the quantity and quality of our teaching workforce. We have the best teachers in the country, bar none. We got outstanding educators, and we do a better job than nearly all big urban districts in retaining our teachers. In part because we pay our teachers, although I wish we could pay them more, we pay them relatively well. So teachers in New York City now, under the most recent collective bargaining agreement, will make $100,000 after 8 years of service, and that's great. I wish we could do it even earlier. They deserve it, but that certainly doesn't make you rich in New York City. But it does definitely helps us on teacher retention, which makes the burden of backfilling for vacancies easier. And even then, Steve, you're 100% right. We have chronic shortages among special education teachers, even though we have increased our number of special education teachers very substantially in the last decade, but we have shortages every year. We have shortages of ESL teachers in some cases. We have shortages of certainly secondary STEM teachers. And these are decades-long shortages. Our schools of education just don't produce enough of those teachers. So, and we have overall about 76,000 teachers overall in the city. So 10 to 12,000 on top of that is a huge increase. And I can tell you, there are not enough new teachers being produced by our schools of education and our alternative certification programs to meet that kind of demand. So that would be a huge concern, even if we had $1.9 billion, even if the state decides they're going to increase foundation aid to fund that, we would have a very serious challenge in finding certified teachers to fill all those new vacancies. And certainly, as you suggest, Steve, making sure that these are really well-trained, high-quality, qualified teachers to teach our kids. So that's one of the real worries with these sorts of laws.
Any council members want to ask a question? Yep, go ahead, John. Can you?
You just said that there's staff shortages. 12,000 new teachers to find is going to be very, very hard to find. So what are you guys going to do in regards to that predicament?
John, thanks for the question. Oh, sorry, were you still going?
It's good. That was the question.
Okay. One of the things we do in New York City that has been very, very effective is alternative certification program. So many of you have heard of teaching fellows. I think something like 1 in 9 of our teachers have come through the teaching fellows program. One of the ways we recruit teachers to our teaching fellows and other alternative certification programs is we subsidize their tuition to get the master's degree that you have to get in New York in order to become a certified teacher. So that's obviously a pretty attractive benefit. It's costly. So how would we get 10 to 12,000? By the way, this is not a cost that we have figured in that $1.9 billion calculation. We would probably have to think about increasing the subsidy or expanding it in some way so we could attract even more talent. We would probably go to the state and ask them to waive some of the requirements that exist right now around coursework, around certification exams, so that we could recruit a lot more teachers more quickly. But I'm going to tell you, it would be a major challenge, even if we had the resources to do those sorts of things.
Any other council members like to ask a question? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
All right, say for instance that we pass our resolution for the amendments. How is the DOE gonna listen to us? And can they legally follow our resolution? Like, let us be exempt from this law?
Great question, Elizabeth. Appreciate the question. we, like all of the resolutions under Chancellor Banks, we will respond formally to the resolution. But no, it does not have the force of law. This is one of the issues with the law. The unions can grant exemptions for particular schools. They have to sign off on it, the UFT and CSA. But beyond that, there are no exceptions, none. So if you have a class in an elementary school in District 20 with that's a second grade class with 21 students, you have to hire another teacher in order to get it under 20 or 20 and under, I should say. So even, you know, we would certainly very much respect the sense of the council and the resolution, and we would, you know, do whatever we could to, as we would with all the resolutions, regardless of the point of view from the CEC, make sure that our elected officials are aware of it and are hopefully engaging with you to get more of your views. But unless the state legislature amends the law and the governor signs it, over the next 5 years, we will have no choice. We will have to get to full compliance.
Thanks. Maybe time for. I see Tamara. I see your hand up. Go ahead, Tamara.
Yeah, my question is, well, I have a comment and a question because as somebody who has had children in overcrowded schools and has in overcrowded classes and has had children in classes that started off with small class sizes, I noticed a difference. There's a huge difference. I saw it, and I noticed a difference in it, my children's learning as well. My question is, okay, why don't we just fully fund the school? How about we stop cutting our education budget and fully fund our schools just in general, so this doesn't become an issue, so we don't have to worry about funding in general, because that seems to be the problem. We don't have the money, right? That's what's being stated here. But then every time we get a new mayor, every time we get a new chancellor, the first thing that happens is they cut the budget for education. And then our kids are affected, and our teachers are affected, and our administrations are affected. How about we don't cut the budget for our children's education? How about we find the money somewhere else? Okay, what about going after lowering the amount of money with all the contracts that get voted on at the PEP? There's some of those companies that are not even great companies that you guys keep voting money in all the time, millions of dollars, and they don't even do an adequate job. How about we stop doing that? How about we find companies that are willing to do the job correctly, that doesn't affect our children and our families? How about that? How about we fully fund our schools in general, so our kids could have the education that they deserve, that we all know that they're supposed to get? How about that?
Appreciate the comments. I think the question is, what does it mean to fully fund? And what I'm putting forward, but it's not just me, you don't have to trust us. Look at the independent budget office. In order to fully fund this law, it requires another almost $2 billion. That is not in our budget. And all due respect, we're not going to get it by, you know, cutting a contract here and there. It's $2 billion, a lot of money. So if we are funded at that amount, then we've got a different story.
Thanks. And I think we are, any other questions from council members? Okay, I think we can now move along, and I'm glad to see we're right on schedule with your original timing, Dan. So thank you. I really appreciate you being here and sharing your perspective as really sort of, you know, from the seat you sit in, where you know, essentially the number 2 in the DOE. We really appreciate your perspective and sharing some of the complexities of this law that'll help us and the public to think about it and understand it better.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks. Good night, Dan.
Great to see you.
Our next speaker is Matt Chingos from the Urban Institute. Matt, if you're on, you can unmute, and I'll just give a quick introduction. Matt is the Vice President in Education and Data Policy. He directs the Center on Education Data and Policy at the Urban Institute. He's done policy research on education from pre-K through post-secondary education. He's testified before Congress. His work has been featured in national media outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, and on NPR. He's also worked at the Brookings Institution, and he has a BA and a PhD from Harvard. So Matt was also a member of the working group as well. So Matt, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, perfect.
Well,
Floor is
thank you.
yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to see you. Good to see Tina and maybe some other members of the working group are here as well. Well, tonight it was great experience over the last few months to spend some time with folks in New York. So as Steve mentioned, I work at the Urban Institute. We're a nonpartisan, independent nonprofit research organization based in Washington, D.C. And our role is not to take positions on particular policies, but really to help folks understand what the research says and how policies are likely to play out in practice so they can adopt policies that advance their goals. So the one thing I want you to take away from my brief remarks tonight is the difference between class size as a general matter and class size caps in particular. I think almost all of us want smaller classes for our kids. I certainly do as a parent of two school-aged kids. And it's easy to make the jump from liking smaller classes to liking a mandate that all classes be below a certain number, right? You like smaller classes? Well, then it seems like a reasonable thing to come along and say, well, let's make all the classes smaller. But as Dan just talked about, without an unlimited budget, that requires making a bunch of sacrifices that we may not want to make. And that's because when principals decide how many classroom teachers to hire for their school, they're not just thinking about class size, but they're also thinking about how much money they want to have left over to hire math coaches, to hire guidance counselors, to hire psychologists, to fund music programs, to support after-school activities, and all those other kinds of things that are beyond just, what happens in the classroom or the primary classroom for children. And so what happens is if we require principals to reduce class size, we're effectively forcing them to make decisions that they don't think are best for kids, to fire those math coaches, to fire the guidance counselors or the art teachers, to cancel the after-school programs or what have you. And now, if there were research indicating that smaller classes are a highly cost-effective intervention with more bang for the buck than anything else a school might do, then maybe we'd want to force them to do that. Maybe we'd want to substitute our judgment and say, well, yeah, you like these after-school programs, but the research is just so strong, small classes make such a big difference. We really need to tie our hands and say, you got to invest in the smaller classes. But it's simply not the case. The research indicates that in some cases, smaller classes can produce better outcomes. But the evidence is pretty thin. The best study we have, which does show positive impacts of smaller classes in the early elementary grades, was conducted in Tennessee in the 1980s. There are a handful of other high-quality studies. Most of them show smaller effects than the Tennessee study, and some of them find no effects at all. And most of the research we do have is from elementary school. As far as I'm aware, there's no high-quality evidence from high schools, or at least very little. And that's not to say that class size never matters or that we should want classes to be enormous. But it's just not the case that the evidence is compelling enough to overrule principals' judgment by requiring them to adhere to inflexible caps on the class size applied across the board in every classroom, in this case in New York City. Now, states that have tried to do this generally have not had much success. Steve mentioned the California experience in the 1990s. And there, in parks, they did it so quickly, they had to hire a lot of inexperienced teachers, which at least initially offset any benefits of the smaller classes. Florida tried it in the 2000s. That was actually a policy that I studied in my dissertation a long time ago, and found that it didn't make much difference to student achievement. And in New York City, the class size caps might actually do more harm than good. Without new money, principals may have to cut higher impact activities to fund smaller classes, leading to worse student outcomes. Resources will have to be directed away from higher need schools, which tend to be under-enrolled and have smaller classes already, to reduce classes in lower need overcrowded schools. And those overcrowded schools may have no choice but to turn families away because the mandated smaller classes mean room for fewer students. The bottom line is that one-size-fits-all mandates are rarely a good idea, especially in education. If policymakers in Albany want to mitigate the harm this law will cause, they could make it more targeted. I think the CEC resolution's proposal of focusing the mandates on schools that may benefit the most, the highest need elementary schools with struggling achievement levels, I think it's worth taking a close look at. It would be one way one approach to making the law less inequitable, more targeted, more cost-effective. Lengthening the implementation timeline is another option to make sure there's enough time to hire new teachers without compromising on teacher quality, as the California experience shows us. And a longer on-ramp to the policy would also make sure there's enough time to monitor the implications of the law as it's being rolled out and make adjustments, especially if the mandate is causing harm to students. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and happy to take any questions from the council members.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. Can you just talk a little bit about the report that the Urban Institute recently put out? Because you've published at least one commentary specifically on the class size law, and just sort of specifically mentioned the data analysis you performed and the conclusions you came to on that.
So a lot of what we do at Urban is think about the distributional impacts of a policy. You know, where do the costs come from? Where do the benefits go? Who's going to benefit more? Who's going to benefit less? And one thing that, you know, I said we're nonpartisan, non-ideological, but we do care a lot about equity. We care a lot about how resources are distributed and whether we're doing what we need to do to support the students who are furthest from opportunity, support especially students from families experiencing poverty, especially to be concerned about issues around structural racism and the effect that has on our Black and Brown students, you know, above and beyond the effects of concentrated poverty, where, you know, that we know can be greater in those communities on average. And so that's been the focus of the analysis we've done of the New York City law. And so we've done 2 reports on this that you can find on the Urban website. One of them looked at just how the class size reductions would be distributed if the law were fully implemented. And what we find is that, as you'd expect, a lot of classes are currently above the caps, and so a lot of classes would be reduced. But on average, there would be more reductions in classrooms attended by lower income students than by not low income students, and there would be more reductions, or sorry, I got that reversed. There'd be more reductions in the classrooms of not low income students than in low income students, and there'd be more reduced class size in the classrooms of white and Asian students than of Black and Hispanic students. And so then we also ran some simulations about, well, what does that imply for what it would, you know, if you did have the new money, you know, how would those dollars be distributed to pay for this? And so it's not surprising because the classes are already smaller in schools attended by lower income students and Black and Hispanic students, well, you're going to be directing less new money there. And so it would, if you were to fully fund this law, it would actually reduce funding equity in New York City, because you'd be spending more new dollars to the lower needs schools. And now, of course, in practice, as the conversation tonight has touched on, there isn't new money for this law. And so in essence, if the city were forced to do it, they'd have to take the money from somewhere. And so really the challenge, as the state commissioners pointed out, is you're going to have to kind of rob from Peter to pay Paul. And so the harm to funding equity could be even greater, to the extent that you have to take from the lower needs schools, or rather take from the higher needs schools where classes are already tend to be a little bit smaller, and send it to lower needs schools.
Do any council members have any questions for Matt?
Yes, I wanted to ask, did you even see how many of those students actually have outside instructions, like extra tutoring that their parents pay for?
That was a great question, and thank you. That wasn't a kind of part of our analysis. We looked at some publicly available data just on counts and the class sizes and demographics, and kind of just put together a higher level analysis. But obviously understanding those resources that families have outside of the classroom, outside of the school, is important, but wasn't part of the work we did on the class size policy in New York.
All right, because that's a very important information, because I feel like sometimes like people say, oh, the students do better in the wealthier neighborhood, but it's probably because they're also getting extra help outside of school. Thank you.
Right. I think that's an important point, especially if you look at student achievement data across schools. Obviously, that doesn't just reflect what's happening in those schools. It reflects all kinds of resources students have access to in their neighborhoods, in their homes, from their families and things like that.
Any questions for Matt from council members?
Not necessarily for him, but I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
All right, so this law was brought up in June of 2022. It was passed. did you guys even include the influx of migrants that's coming in, thousands of children that are coming into these city schools? Did you guys even think about that? And plus District 75, they cut their money down by probably about $1 million. Was that even thought of?
Yeah, I mean, it's not for Matt
No.
or I, neither one of us had to do with the law. Yeah, I mean, Matt, I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit, sort of what John just raised, the issue of sort of the influx of migrants we've had into the city school systems. And sorry, what was the second part?
And that they're actually taking money away from District 75 children.
Who is?
It's New York City public schools.
Matt won't really, I don't think that's in Matt's purview. That's a budget question. But Matt, yeah, if you could just comment, I guess it is an interesting dynamic here. We've had obviously the influx of migrants, thousands, of students now looking for new schools, and any sort of connection or thoughts around how that will be impacted, how that new cohort of students may or may not be impacted by this law. I don't know if you've looked at that sort of within New York City, what schools are getting impacted the most. I've heard anecdotes, but I haven't seen any comprehensive sort of look at it. But any thoughts on that?
It's a really great question. That's something I've taken a look at. I mean, obviously I've read the headlines coming out of New York about that set of issues, but I'm not aware of, any data on exactly where. I think it would depend on the schools that those, newly arrived students are enrolling in terms of, to the extent those students are enrolling in schools that are relatively under-enrolled, where class sizes are smaller, well, maybe there's space to accommodate them within the class size caps. But to the extent it's a huge number of new students, and even if they're going to under-enrolled schools, well, then those schools may become less under-enrolled and, put further pressure on the need to reduce class size in those schools as well. Of course, to the extent they're going to overcrowded schools, well, then it's going to make things more challenging there. So, I think more students in the system, depending on kind of how they're distributed across schools relative to these caps. And that's kind of like, I think the challenge with these caps is they don't put downward pressure on class size and say, well, we kind of want to, we have too many classes of 30, we want to bring them to 28 by saying, 20, 23, 25. It makes it inflexible, and it creates sort of those management challenges of once you go from 20 to 21, well, suddenly you have to hire a new teacher.
Great, thanks. And one point I will make here is, in particular, in relation to the migrants, I was just talking to a principal of a week or so ago about bilingual education, and the principal was saying, well, I've got these bilingual classes, and now the DOE is sending me the numbers under the class size law, and I need to increase the number of bilingual classes, split them up, and hire more bilingual teachers, especially relevant with a lot of the migrant students coming in. But now you're suddenly in a situation where you actually have to find more qualified bilingual teachers. And that's an area that's in short supply. So just kind of a follow-on comment to that. Any other questions for Matt from council members? We good? All right, Matt, thanks for joining District 20 tonight. Really appreciate you being here and the work you've done.
Glad to do it. Thanks, Dave. Have a good night.
Yep, have a good night. Okay, next up is our school construction authority requests. For this process, Kevin, can you share the sheet? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So let me share the sheet. For anyone who's not familiar, once a year, there's an opportunity for community participation in the school construction authority capital plan. And schools are asked to submit project requests, and our job as a CEC is to rank and vote the top 5, and then submit the entire list to the school construction authority. And the school construction authority will review the submitted projects and make a decision. Usually comes back to us in the fall. So I will share my screen. And council members, I know a lot of you are new. It's your first time doing this. The process tonight, as I just mentioned, is we're going to take a look, and we've shared this several times with all of you. Take a look at the project list and see if anyone has any recommendations for the top 5. We'll and then we will vote and approve those. So I've put a few up here that I think we might want to consider for the top 5. But nothing's final until we vote on it. And I'll just share a little bit for council members. Some of my thinking on this was, reading through every project. The School Construction Authority really focuses on structural safety and soundness of buildings. So I think we should take that into consideration. We should put projects up here that really have to do with the building's integrity. Unfortunately, a lot of the sometimes projects like technology projects and school enhancement projects get submitted, and that's fine. It's unlikely the SCA will approve those. Those should go to a Resolution A funding through the Borough President's Office or the City Council or another source. So I tried to take that into consideration when sort of picking out projects, and then also looking at schools that haven't been in our top 5 the last few years compared to where we are now. So just trying to rotate the number of schools in the top 5. So anyway, with that as sort of opening comments, council members, if you have any other thoughts, I'll just go through the 5 I picked so far. Again, this is not final. At 506, principal noted that there was flooding in the school during heavy rainstorms, and I think that to me is something that the School Construction Authority should definitely take a look at. PS 48 in Mapleton, I noticed that their auditorium project, it has a wheelchair, it has a lift for the wheelchair, but that is not functional. In addition to some other auditorium upgrades, PS 204 highlighted a phone system that doesn't work in inclement weather. And that's obviously it could be a potential safety issue. PS 247 highlighted a real lack of outdoor space in particular. And I think one of our council members, John Riccatoni, has actually visited there and sort of vouched for that. And so those are 4 projects that I sort of flagged, and all of them, I think, some of them could be funded through ResOA, but some of them definitely we'd like to ask the SCA what they think. But does anyone else have any ideas or other projects on the list that we could put in our top 5? And then what I did for the rest of the grouping was I grouped them by category and by the order of what I thought was under the SCA's purview. So for example, exterior projects, I grouped second. Electrical projects, I grouped after that. And then those to me speak to sort of building integrity. And then after that, we get into the, very common, our bathroom upgrades. We've also got cafeteria upgrades and gym and auditorium upgrades. Those are very common requests. I've grouped those here. And then unfortunately, as I mentioned last, there are some smaller projects that typically won't get approved. Dealing with, for example, water fountains is a common one, and technology projects typically don't fall under the SCA's purview. So I guess if we need one more project to put up here, I just want to flag, I think there was there's a request for, I'm just going to take a moment and look at this here.
Steve, I don't see that.
They were on here. It's, yeah, let me look at that. And did you see it? Okay. So from the exterior projects, I recommend picking one of these and moving that into our top 5. There's 170. I was actually interested in this. I don't know if that 170 talks about the windows in the building need replacing. And that to me, again, this comes back to like, what are things that the SCA would potentially do? Unfortunately, some of the stuff like repairing a playground, that's more like a Resolution A thing than the School Construction Authority. But for example, PS 170 replacing the windows, That to me seems like something that the SCA should potentially go in and evaluate. And all of this will be evaluated by the SCA. We're not experts, obviously, so no one has to feel like they're running construction analysis on this. This is purely just a community engagement exercise. All right, so we'll just move that one up to the top 5 there for PS 170, and I don't believe they were on the list last year of yeah, correct. Last year the schools, yeah, they were not on the top 5 list last year. So anyway, I will add them to the top 5 here. And then we will. Okay, so I've highlighted the top 5 requests in yellow. Those will be the ones that we will vote on to approve, but we'll send the whole list to the SCA, and they do review every project on the list each year. Is there a motion to approve our top 5? Go ahead, Tim, 1 second. I did, there is a motion on the floor, but Tamara, go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're all picking this. These are ones that you chose, or we're discussing all together that we're picking these 5?
Yep. Did you have any response or anything, Tamara? Any suggestions?
Well, I was looking at the one for PS 164 about the elevator and about the concerns about them getting the staff up and down. And I know like we have a number of buildings in this district that are not all accessible, and that seemed to be like a genuine request. But we're just looking at just the exterior of buildings.
Yeah, Tamara, the elevator is an interesting one, right? Because my experience.
That's my liaison school.
Yeah.
I did visit and they said that there was a person that passed away in that school. It took the fire department and everybody to get up the stairs because it's a narrow stairs.
Yeah.
And it took them a long time. So they don't, she was pronounced a DOA on scene.
Yeah.
But that's why they requested the elevator so that they won't have any issues with having them
Yeah.
down the stairs on a triangle way, bringing somebody down.
Got
It's like it goes up to 5 stories.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I could tell my part of this is the likelihood of getting things approved. And I know elevators, to put an elevator in an old building, again, some of this is based on my years of experience doing this and seeing what kind of projects actually get some kind of response. A lot of them don't, but the elevator one to me, I did think about putting it in there, by the way. So I'm happy to move it in there if there's opinion to do that. I have no problem doing that at all. Tamara,
I would like it add there.
And John?
That's a safety concern.
We'll go see if they can consider an elevator at 164 here. And Tamara, I don't know if did you have another specific request? I think you might have had a second project you wanted to discuss.
No, I was just looking through it because I wasn't sure like how we were going to be picking, because there's a lot of great projects here that are needed. And my question was just because I know there were schools that last year were already on this list. And to me, it just didn't make any sense to have them be a part of this list if they already had some repairs that were already done last year. So that was my question, because I wasn't sure I couldn't remember who was picked last year out of the 5. So I wanted to make sure that we gave another different schools, a chance to actually get the update that they needed from this. Because like I said, you're going to give them the whole list, but like some of these are my liaison schools, and we can speak to our city councilman and the borough president for some of these as well. So I just wanted to make sure that there was we know who the 5 was, and we make sure there was no cross compatibility so we could advocate for the others.
Yeah, for the top five, I did exactly consider that, and there is no repetition from last year to this year. And like you said, and like everything gets looked at and reviewed. And I absolutely agree about liaisons, finding the schools on this list that are their schools and working with elected officials to get funding as well. It's a great chance to sort of start that engagement because there's other ways to get funding besides just the SCA. All right, is there a motion to approve these five? Second?
Second.
Okay, Joyce, can you take a roll call vote?
Yeah, we're gonna turn up. Steve Stowe,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
Joyce, yes. Mei Fun,
Yes.
Wenming,
Yes.
Yan Qing,
Yes.
Maya is excused. Tamara,
Yes.
what did he say? What did she say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Kevin,
Yes.
I will have 9 yes, 1 absent. I mean, 1 excuse.
Thanks. I'm just making a quick correction. We did vote on the elevator. I put the wrong 164 project in there, but that's the project we're voting on. Oh. Okay. All right, thanks, Joyce. So that concludes our SCA capital project. I'll stop sharing my screen. Next up on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So Dr. Preto, floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year. My presentation tonight is to introduce the 2 new principals that will open the new elementary schools in the district next year. So PS 413, which was known as the KO 53 site, which is located in Upper Bay Ridge. I'm going to introduce the project manager, future interim acting principal, Sahir Saeed. And then afterwards, I'm going to introduce the project manager, interim acting principal of PS 331, which was known as the K76 building or the Angel Guardian, the Angel Guardian School, Lisa Lynn. So I'm going to invite both of the project managers up, and they're going to introduce themselves and also give a preview of the open house presentations that will be provided to all prospective families to share the information about themselves and their backgrounds, the initial mission and vision statements that they've developed for the schools, initial programming considerations that they've designed, and also ways in which community members, interested families, parents can contact them directly, give feedback, input on what they see and what they would like to see, and begin to get introduced to the communities as they work towards opening both schools in September 2024. So I'm going to invite them both up. Mr. Saeed will go first, and then Ms. Lynn will go second. Interesting.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sahir Saeed. I am the project manager for PS 413. Thank you, Dr. Preto, and thank you for the committee taking the time for us to introduce ourselves and our plan for our schools. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Egypt, and I grew up in a house where I saw my father as not only as a high school teacher, but also as an assistant principal who empowered the community. He was very involved I remember walking with him in the street, and sometimes we'll be stopping many times for questions and just for greetings. I didn't understand at the time why is it important to take the time to talk to parents and to his students. But later on, I understood that he was empowering not only the parents, but also empowering the students. And I wanted to be like him. I wanted to be very involved in the community. After that, I came to the United States when I was 19 years old, after I finished my undergraduate degree to be a teacher. I didn't have any family in the States. It was not an easy change. I worked many jobs. I worked overnight, 12-hour shifts. And in the morning, I went to City College to get my teacher certification to become an E&L teacher. After that, I accepted a position as an E&L teacher in District 12. I taught ESL, special education. And later on, I accepted a position as an assistant principal in District 25 for 9 years. During that time, I supported teachers building their capacity, not only in instruction, but also presented and unpacked different social emotional learning programs, including Ruler and Sanford Harmony. Shortly after that 9 years, I joined District 20 as a multi-language learner service administrator for District 20, supporting 40 schools in the district. And it was an amazing experience where I fall in love with District 20 and the multi-language learners that we have and the amazing teachers and staff, as well as principals. As a district staff member, I had the privilege of learning more about different structures and different systems that our schools have. I am also a parent of 2 beautiful children, one in 3rd grade and one in 7th grade. So I'm really proud of them. This is the location of PS 413. It's between Senator Street and 68th Street on 3rd Avenue. Our school's core values are communication, respect, and perseverance. This is an overview about our school. PS 413 is a new community elementary school in District 20, serving all students in grades K to 5, focusing on international world studies. All students will engage in strategically planned grade level activities and will learn the importance of perseverance and hard work as they make connections between their prior learning and new concepts. Our school will create a mutually respectful atmosphere among all individuals involved in students' learning. We will empower our students and parents by communicating clearly what is working and specific next steps to meet the needs of all students. Our vision for PS 413 is dedicated to create a joyful and inclusive learning community where all students' cultural and linguistic backgrounds are not only celebrated, but also embraced. We strive to empower our students for success in a global society by providing them with the cultural, linguistic, and critical thinking skills necessary to thrive in a multicultural world. Our mission is to develop students' skills academically, as well as socially and emotionally. We continue nurturing community of learners that value diversity and embrace the power of overcoming challenges. Our goal is to prepare our students to enrich their local communities and global communities. All means all. PS 413 is for all students. All students will engage in rigorous standard aligned instruction, reflecting next generation learning standards. Enrichment activities will be created based on students' interest, needs, and funds. These are some of the core curriculum that we might have as we open our school. For ELA, we will utilize HMNH into reading. For science, we will utilize Amplify and Password for social studies. For math, we will utilize Envision. And of course, we will have art, physical education, and social emotional learning. As I mentioned earlier, we will support all of our students. We will create enrichment activities for all students. There will be support for our students with disabilities based on their IEP recommendations, as well as our multi-language learners. For our multi-language learners, we will have freestanding email services, and we will have a two-way Arabic dual language program. Let me explain here the difference between one-way dual language program and two-way dual language program. In a one-way dual language program, all students in the program are English language learners with the same home language. With a two-way dual language program, half of the students are English language learners and the other half are proficient English speakers. This is a great opportunity to build knowledge, language about multicultural aspects and create multiple opportunities for students to be on track to earn the seal of biliteracy as high school graduates. After school programs will consider work in progress based on enrollment, based on parents' interest, as well as on funds. These are different ways to get in touch with us. We have our next open house on Friday, January 12th from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. The information on the slide. Also, we have a phone number for the school as well as a website, and there is a feedback form. Your ideas and suggestions are essential to bring our plans and hopes to reality. I am counting on the community members, the parents, everyone who is present today to share their thoughts, their hopes, so we can work together and create an amazing learning experience for our students at PS 413.
Great, thanks so much. Do any council members, we don't have to, I don't think we need a ton of time on this. We'll try to get the meeting moving, but does anyone have any questions about PS 413? Maybe one question or something?
So if any student wants to come at any grade level from K to 5, they could just apply.
In the meantime, we as a new school, we only open in kindergarten. So we will start with two sections or three sections. That means 2 classes or 3 classes. Based on enrollment, that decision will be made.
All right, thank you.
I actually do have a question about 413, construction wise, and maybe David, this is something you could weigh in on as well, or are we on schedule with the building construction?
Yes.
What's the contingency if it is not complete by September?
So far, there haven't been any discussions needing to even discuss any contingencies, but if there were, I would be working with the Office of District Planning, with facilities and with BSTA to determine contingency plans. But as of right now, there have been no concerns and need to discuss them.
Okay. Thanks. I think we can move along. Very nice to meet you. I'm sure we'll be seeing you in the future.
Thank you so much.
Hi, guys. I actually had a question for him.
Yeah. Hey, Tamara, go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to find out, will IEP students be allowed to be part of the dual language program?
Tamara, can you repeat that, please?
Or will any of the IEP students that you have be eligible for the dual language program?
Said yes. No.
So the question was enrichment programs, and we were indicating that the two-way dual language program is considered an enrichment program because it not only includes English language learners, but also includes students who are English proficient students. So those students will be learning two content areas in Arabic, which is a target language, and they will also learn the rules of the language, and not only the language, but also the culture. So it's enrichment.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. I would like to move along now to our next project manager.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. And tonight, thank you all for giving me this opportunity, and particularly Superintendent Dr. Preto, to give me this opportunity to become the new project manager for PS 331. And it is honor and privilege to be here tonight to share a little bit about the school and about myself. I'm actually proud to call District 20 my home. I was born and raised in Taiwan, and my first job was actually in District 20 as a middle school teacher. And then afterwards, I was also the coach and also assistant principal in PS 105. Yeah. Later on, I would speak a little bit more about my background. I just want to showcase my school right now. The school is located. All right, got it. Very good. Teamwork. The school is located at 6312 13th Avenue. The cross street, I believe, is between, it's a 64th Street. And I think right now it's a 5-story buildings being built and proposing for 547 seats. This is our future building will look like. I believe it's state-of-the-art, and I'm really, really excited to actually welcome all of you and our children into our building. Just like PS 413, our school will actually extend grade by grade. So we start with kindergarten, proposing probably 4 to 5 sessions, depends on the enrollment. We will have a general education, and definitely will be serving the students with disabilities and English language learners. Later on, you will also learn that in our vision also is serving the students actually with a dedicated world language when the student graduate. That's actually one of our mission and vision. A little bit about myself. I know this is a slightly older version. The print is very small, but I'm going to speak a little bit faster just about myself. As I mentioned, I was born and raised in Taiwan. My parents were actually street vendor. They did not have a lot of education. We're not rich, but we're always happy and we always have what we need. Watching my parents were, getting up 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning and work until 11 and 12 p.m. at night, that really installed the value that in me, which is hard work and integrity. And also, there's a sense of community. Since they really don't have a time taking care of me, I became very, very independent at a very young age. And I was also brought up by the village. That means that I was in my crib and talking to everybody in the market. Everybody will walk past by my crib and they will give me some food and they will talk to me. And that's usually my day. And as I grow up, as I was growing up, we just watch each other's family and we help each other and we take care of each other's children. I become the leader of the pack. So I think that kind of, laid the background of, who I am today and then why I do what I do. My guidance mostly come from my teachers. They are my guides and my inspiration. So I follow their footsteps to become a teacher. I graduated in National No More Taiwan University, which is the top teachers college in Taiwan. I was the middle school teacher and administrator there for 5 years before I came to the United States in year 2001. I wait table for 1 year to wait for the opportunity to be able to serve the community here. Finally, I got a call from District 20's office to offer me a job in the middle school. The first day I walk into the classroom, I have 60 little faces looking at me. At that time, the bilingual teachers are very rare. So I teach them bilingually. I enjoy my job very much. One day, something happened in the school. Students were very upset. He was angry, but he was really not able to express himself. Apparently something had happened. There's a conflict between him and other students. We also called the parents coming in. The parent couldn't speak English either. So at that time, I was a translator and I was the advocate. Unfortunately, at that time, there was really not a lot of following up was done, but through that case. So at that time is when I decided I need to do more. I need to advocate more. And that's why I pursue school administration. And that's why I want to become a principal today. I've been in education for 26 years. The past 2.5 years, I was also the principal in Astoria. It's a very unique school that's servicing the newly arrived immigrants for New York City. We have tripled enrollment, doubled the staff member. I was able to secure $500,000 to build a state-of-the-art science lab and more than $100,000 grants in technology equipment and arts education. I'm also really concerned about the wellness and the social emotional learning of students. So we have in store many different initiatives that we're in the school. Our students only been here for 1.5 years. We actually was able to have double-digit gains in ELA and math. At the moment right now, I'm also part of the Gray Fellowship for Principal Excellence and also serve as a coach as a principal. With that being said, what's so special about the school? I have 2 children. One is 13 and one is 8. My older son is actually on the spectrum. And my younger daughter, which has 1 million why questions every day. So 2 of them together really challenge me as a parent and as an educator. And every day I'm thinking about what can I do more? Where should I live? Which school should I go to? And I think I'm talking to my community here. So when I was trying to develop this school, I'm also thinking about what kind of school do I want to send my child to? So my key is I want my child to be successful and I want my child to be happy. So within this school, we definitely gonna get a foundational, the core curriculum that Saeed was talking about down packed, but we're also gonna have individual focuses that preparing children for the future job opportunities. So that's why tentatively the school is called Global Academy for Entrepreneurship and Technology. Through different type of project-based learning infused in the curriculum and a mentorship, and we're hoping to partner with the community, with the parents, with big businesses, so students can do different projects, start from kindergarten. Financial literacy is another one I think is very important that was not really taught in school that now just getting its importance. Advanced technology, what will happen in the next 5 years when AI really taking place? It's already happening, right? We're all trying to catch up here. I'm still learning. Our kids are actually digital native, so they are more advanced than we do. So I really, really want to kind of bring it to the forefront. World language. In order to be a global citizen, you have to know another language so you can communicate, so you can be more competitive, right, in the future. And the last thing is student agency. I think students right now, we're so attached to devices or sometimes technology the social interaction and also self-understanding and emotional intelligence sometimes is not really that well developed, you know, and a lot of things happen just because that student doesn't really understand themselves and the other person. So the mutual respect and also the self-learning and self-empowerment and student voice are so important that I want to totally ingrain in our vision and vision. So within our vision, you can see that we envision a nurturing and inclusive learning environment for all children. And we want to actually groom 21st century global citizen. Within what we just talked about, entrepreneurial pathways, financial knowledge, technology, and definitely graduate with a one world language that they chosen. So is in our mission. In the mission, definitely also kind of go back to what we're talking about. Definitely, we're gonna go beyond traditional learning. We have to get the core academic skill. We have to master that. Then through different kind of pathway, we can also prioritize students' voice, self-love, and personal empowerment. And also the sense of responsibility of the community services. You know, this is what I believe. This is what I live and breathe. And definitely also welcome the community feedback and also your collaboration in making this happen. I want every child flourish academically, socially, emotionally, and laying that foundation for them for lifetime of success, fulfillment, and happiness. This is our core values: global awareness, academic excellence, fostering entrepreneurships, ethical leadership, adaptability and flexibility, and technology integration. So going back to our 5 key points, and that's what our vision and vision is about. Here's the information. Here's some of our information. You can call us, but I would really encourage you to email us, because when you write something to us, we can actually take our time to read through your comments, to give you a feedback. And I'm inviting all the parents that actually, when you sign up for our school, I know the deadline is January 19. And we're also, just like Saeed, I'm having the virtual open house next Tuesday night. It's on next slide. We'll send out the flyers and we can actually provide the CEC committee a flyer as well. Here's our email, ps331bk@gmail.com. And here's a very simple website, just kind of talk about our vision and vision. Again, here's our school location. Feel free to reach out, and thank you so much for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have to keep moving, but I just want to ask a quick question. Both, I guess you're sitting here, so you can answer it, but I'm also, same question kind of goes for Saeed too. Programming at the schools, you know, just curious, as far as you both come in with visions, obviously, that's great. I actually really feel like schools need principals who have visions, who can steer the ship. It's an administrative role. It's not a, you know, role where you're constantly saying, what should I do? What should I do? But I do wonder about parent engagement on the creating the sort of the programming and the framework for both of your schools. What was done? What will be done?
You want to
As
go
far as
first?
getting parent engagement and parent input into that process.
We are at the very early stages of starting that structure.
Sorry. So the question was about parent involvement, and actually I like to call it parent empowerment, because it's not only engagement, but also empowering them. So as I mentioned, we are at the very early stages of framing our school and creating those systems and structures. So at this point, we are open for all suggestions and ideas from parents. As I mentioned earlier, the hopes for the community, what would they like to see in the school? So there are different ways of communicating with us and getting the structure going on. Once we have our kindergarten admissions windows closed, I think it's January 19th. After that, we will reach out again to those parents specifically whose children would be admitted to the school, and then we will have in-person or virtual meetings and hear more from those parents specifically.
Right, but it would be better if parents knew in advance what the school was going to offer, and then they might decide to apply or not.
Mhm. Can I just add on what Saeed was saying, that what we're doing right now is just like the CEP is a working document, right? So right now we're collecting feedback just based on this presentation. Parents are going to open house and virtual meetings. We'll have the contact information. It'll be ongoing communication, right? Before the school even opens. We do our programming and the budget during the summer. Right? So once we have those group, the parents actually working with us, and we will continue to evolve even after the school starts. Because after school starts, that depends on who has a mandate, who does not, where is the space, and which program who are we partnering with, that might change. So I believe we're gonna have the community design committee form afterwards, like after probably enrollment close, and when we know who our community is, then we'll be able to take it from there.
And the feedback is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, like Sayer said, it is early on in the process. We're in January, and Lisa and Sayer both, along with Stephen Lombardo, have begun engaging in the same process of designing mission, vision, these types of kind of broader concepts that they look to drive the school with, values. Other than curriculum, the schools are small as well. So there is not an infinite amount of offerings that schools are going to be able to offer with a school of 3 sections or a school of 5 sections per grade. So it is really important, and it's really important to me that the schools that we open serve the communities that they serve. You know, we want to make sure that, and we have the opportunity with a new school to be able to utilize, you know, district priorities, you know, our accelerated learning structures, and all of those different pieces that do exist, but also to inform like how that's going to be tailored to the environment that families that come into these new schools can help inform. It's something that's very important to me, and I hope that the leaders have been able to express that.
Thanks. Yeah, one more on that.
So kindergarten classes are 25 students cap, so it will be about 2 or 3 classes in kindergarten. It depends on enrollment.
Thank you. And Mrs. Lynn, do you know how many you have?
3 to 4, so it's similar, yeah.
And also for the district 75 seats, do you know the ratio that you're using in your class?
Ms. Lynn's not the principal of the District 75 program. It's co-located in the school. Yep.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now, Council President, I'm just going to make one announcement. Coming up in 2 weeks, a little bit less than 2 weeks, Tuesday, January 23rd, we have District 20 Town Hall with Chancellor Banks. And I just want to get that on everyone's radar. The flyers, the Department of the BOE makes those. So they've told us they're going to be getting those to us any day. So we'll be sending that out to everyone, but Chancellor Banks will be here. The event will be at PS 69. It will start at 6:30 on January 23rd. It will run for an hour. And so we encourage everyone to attend. The way these events work, they are discussions, conversations with the CEC and the Chancellor, but the CEC takes questions from the community. And so we really encourage, obviously, all the questions and comments we hear at these meetings, we can channel those, and anyone who wants to submit a question specifically for the town hall with Chancellor Banks, please email the CEC, cec20@schools.nyc.gov. And we will take those questions. We'll try to get those questions asked and answered. We can never get to all of them since there's a time limit, but and we hope many of you join us either online or in person, January 23rd at PS 69. Now we will have our second public speaking session. And we will go to the speakers who signed up online. We're going to go 2 minutes per speaker. Kevin, how many do we have signed up?
So
Sure.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, we can, yeah, there's another, yeah. Anyone who's in person, yeah, we didn't, it's not exclusive to the first session, but just anyone else in person who would like to sign up to speak now, you can do so as well on the sign-in sheet. We'll go online, take a few online. 10? Oh, great. And we have 10 online, so and it is
8:30.
8:30, and we have 2, it looks like in person. We can go 2.5 minutes per speaker. Yeah, 2.5 minutes per speaker. So online, Kevin, who is our first? Who's our first? Okay. Ariel, can you hear me? And if you can, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Sorry. I just wanted to speak about the resolution, and before I go, I know it's a little late, but Happy New Year to all. I'm speaking against the resolution, and I hope that everyone will agree with me. It is about time that we give our students class sizes similar to those throughout the rest of the state. The campaign for fiscal equity, one of the largest portions of that was the fact that our students have been shortchanged for decades in terms of receiving the services that they need, and class size was one of those pieces. The state funded the campaign for fiscal equity finally fully this year, and the funds have been given to provide those services, including the class size. So I'm not going to beleaguer the point. I just hope that everyone votes against the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, who's our next speaker? Elizabeth Edmonds, can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. Can you hear me? You're good? Yeah. All right. I'll try to keep it to 2.5 minutes. I'm here as a private citizen to talk about PS 413 on Senator and 3rd Avenue. Mother of 3 children, and one of them is zoned for that school. I'm also a mother of another kid with an IEP. I wanted to say at the outset, thanks to you, Steve, for all your tireless service, and also to Dr. Preto and your team for being so responsive about this school. The number one thing I think we need about this school is a town hall meeting for people to offer community input on programming. I know there's an open house this Friday. It's at 5 o'clock, but that's very short notice for people who are applying for kindergarten. It's also after sunset on Friday, so many observant Jews will not be able to attend, and we do have quite a few of those in the zone for this school. So I think that we need to find another time in addition to this Friday meeting to have a town hall where the whole community can come together and offer input on the programming that they want to see at this school. I understand dual language is a priority for this school, and I think that's wonderful. I want to suggest for this school that we could have French. It could be the first elementary school in District 20 to have a French program. And I think that would be really great because the students can continue their learning in middle school and in high school with the French program, which can be harder with other languages. But many middle schools and high schools already have French. So if you're not a native French speaker, although we do have many native French speakers in the zone and around Bay Ridge and in District 20, we could also, continue to have the students learning that language. And I do think that there needs to be a community conversation about the choice of language if there's going to be a dual language program, particularly at such a tiny school with so few resources. The next thing I would say is we need options for progressive accelerated learning in District 20. We need a project-based school where kids can learn at an accelerated pace, particularly in math, if that's what they want. There's quite a demand for no homework at the elementary level. I don't think we have a school in Bay Ridge that offers that right now. And we need outdoor recess. And at this school, you could have outdoor recess at Owl's Head Park. I mean, you could have a forest kindergarten, it could be wonderful. It's 2 blocks away. It's perfectly situated for that. So I'd be really hopeful for that. And I would send my 3-year-old to that when he's in kindergarten. Finally, well, almost finally, I understand twice exceptional programming is off the table here. And I think that's too bad. I'm hopeful someday we'll get it, but I think everyone agrees we need more
gonna
NEST
have-
programs in Bay Ridge and more 6-to-1-to-1 Ames programs, some more special ed. And then one quick last thing is just, everyone wants a garden at this school. Like, let's get the garden going at this school and get it done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Speaker.
Emily Lehman.
Emily Lehman. Francis Brown. Francis, you can go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Francis. I'm here on behalf of Senator Ewan Chu. I'll keep this very brief. I know you guys have a lot to get through still for the rest of the meeting. We have a few events coming up, such as Oath in the Office and a number of Lunar New Year events. If you would like some more information or if you have any issues, please reach out to our office. Our email is ewanchu@nysenate.gov, and our office is located at 6605 Fort Hamilton Parkway. Thank you.
Next speaker is Johanna Bjorken. Johanna, if you can hear, you can go ahead. 2.5 minutes.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hi,
we can hear
Can you
you.
hear me? Okay. Hi, Steve. It's nice to see you again. It was really nice. I kind of felt like the old gang was all reunited again a little bit tonight. I'm for those of you who don't know, and that's most of you on the panel. I'm a parent in Sunset Park. I fall on the District 15 line, but just a couple blocks from District 20. And so I know you all and your district very well. I was also a member of the class size working group, and I wanted to say how I know District 20 is a different beast than District 15, and how glad I am for the support there is in your resolution for reducing class size. But I do want to say that the ultimate tactics here are really scare oriented in a way that really is unnecessary. There are a lot of things in the resolution that just that people don't need to be afraid of. For enrollment caps, that happens now. There are caps now. There's a zoning process and a rezoning process. And when parents marched to Albany, they didn't think that this was just going to be a small tweak. This was decades long work to get this law passed. And the type of tweaking, let's make a carve out here, let's make a carve out there, let's accept this, let's accept that. We know the DOE is a huge bureaucracy that cannot handle that and cannot manage that. And really, we need to do this. It's what parents want. It's what's good for kids. It's something that we can do if we have the courage to reimagine how we do it. And that goes from the financial aspect all the way up to the operational aspect. So I really hope that you'll table this resolution and that you really won't be afraid of implementing this law. You won't succumb to the scare tactics. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle Max.
Michelle Max, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm a current parent of 3 students in the DOE system. So I'm just going to read something I wrote. The smaller class size is only harmful if the funding formula doesn't change. Some speakers have mentioned this tonight that the choices principals will have to make regarding providing what resources. I'm a proponent of smaller class sizes, but why have a law if it's not going to be properly funded? I am 5 years in as a parent in the DOE system, and my biggest takeaways are that it doesn't matter what curriculum we have. It only matters how well trained and enthusiastic a teacher is, how well a principal knows her community, and how well parents are willing to advocate and partner with their schools. More importantly, that not one size fits all when it comes to curriculum. Each school and each district have different needs, and mandates like these current ones will only take away the abilities for administrators and parents to provide the education they know fits the needs of their school community. And this is why I'm encouraging Dr. Preto to not impose his interliterature mandate at the middle school level anymore. It's not equitable when you create limitations for all our different learners. These one-size-fits-all mandates need to go. There's an article in the New York Times regarding a school system in California that invested money into training teachers in the science of reading and not in a predetermined curriculum. It's time we start investing our taxpayer money to changes that make sense and properly train our teachers to carry out the philosophy the way they see fit in their school community. A new mayor, a new curriculum, more money. That tends to be the trend. Let's keep the money in the schools and not in the pockets of these vendors. Thank you.
Thank you. Paulette, you can go ahead.
I'm actually really embarrassed by this council right now, because we've been in this meeting for over 2 hours, going on 3. We're still talking about a class size law that is mandated by our state. When we had families come to our meeting talking about their children being abused and bullied and feeling that they have no place in this district. But that's not being prioritized. The safety of our families is not being prioritized. We're still arguing about something that is mandated by the state. And it's frustrating. And you know, it's like we have families sitting in this audience who have been waiting for 2 hours to hear about our brand new schools that are coming online and wondering, like, is this an opportunity for my kid? But you spent an hour talking about this class size bill that is already mandated by the state. It's incredibly frustrating. It's still going on in the chat right now. I am so embarrassed as a long time, you know, District 20 resident, as a Bay Ridge resident, as an advocate who's been fighting for students with disabilities for over 15 years. This is embarrassing. So do better. And quite honestly, yeah, we need more specialized programming. Ames programs are being considered because that falls under D75's umbrella. So yeah, you know, Elizabeth, if you want to talk about Ames programs, I welcome you to the table, because we're working on getting our program directors in place for the D75 co-locations. That's what we need to be talking about. And quite honestly, none of this would be a factor if it wasn't for mayoral control. So being that, you know, our schools were not funded and we had to sue on behalf of the Campaign for Fiscal Equity because of mayoral control, because they changed the way our schools are funded. That is the real problem. And I encourage everyone, if they have the time, to go to Boys and Girls High School tomorrow at 5 p.m. to testify on ending mayoral control. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam.
No last name? Okay.
There's Sam in the.
Okay. Tam, you're up. Tam, can you?
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm in transit, so it's a little bit loud. I apologize for that.
Go ahead.
I agree a lot with what I heard Miss Healy just say in terms of this is happening and we need to get on board with the fact that it's happening. So I think that we are wasting time. There was a lot tonight that I heard that was really disturbing in terms of student safety. And when I think about something like small class sizes, I think about student safety. And I wonder why that has been ignored largely in this sort of minority report or counter resolution, however you want to explain it. School safety and the climate in the schools improves when you have smaller class sizes. This has been studied for decades and the research is widely available. Suspensions go down, violence goes down, and guess what? Bullying goes down. And it's correlated to the fact that students feel like they're a part of a community. The smaller the classrooms, the more students get to know each other, but also the more they get to know their teachers. And when teachers can have that extra time with those students, they can put in for interventions that are often life-saving for these students. It's not just IEPs, it's mental health, it's all kinds of supports that go undiagnosed that aren't happening, and we're in a mental health crisis. We can all get on board with that and at least acknowledge that that's actually happening. Small class sizes helps with all of these things. So the focus on academics, we already know academic achievement, it closes those gaps. Those studies are there as well, but you have to look at the total student. You have to think about their well-being, not just academically, but socially and emotionally as well. And I really do appreciate, I don't know your name, I forgot your name, sorry, sir. There was someone who spoke about, now I am brain farting. I'm totally brain farting on this. Oh, I'm sorry. The working conditions for teachers, and I'm an educator and I've worked in all kinds of environments, traditional, non-traditional, ICT. Now I'm at NYU, and I can tell you absolutely that the working conditions for our teachers has nothing to do with how much money they're making. The conditions suck. And that's why they're leaving. We are losing veteran teachers right now. And the number one thing I hear is classrooms are overcrowded. The funding's not actually going to the teachers in the classrooms, and it's not going to the students. There's mismanagement across the board. There's also the fallout from the pandemic, where parents basically blamed teachers for schools closing, for any kind of, learning loss that happens. So there's
You're
a
at
big
2.5
divide.
minutes, speaker.
Sure. There's a big divide there happening between teachers and, and students and families that needs to be healed. So if we want to attain and attract really great teachers, make their working conditions better, lower class sizes, and have more meaningful impact on those student-teacher relationships. And it helps our IEP kids, helps our students with disabilities.
Thank you.
And
Speaker, your time is up.
last thing, sorry, it's really hard to hear out here. Very last thing, small class sizes do help students with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Venus. And just so Venus is go ahead, Venus, you're up.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm traveling, so I'm not going to turn on my camera. So I'm Stan Ellie, elected parent PEP member and class size working group member, one of the authors of the minority group. I've spent a lot of time in CAC meetings throughout the city, listening in on feedback about the class size law. I want to remind the public that supporting the class size minority report does not mean that we are anti-teacher or anti-student. We want to lower class size too, but not at the expense of more learning loss for our pandemic era students. There is a natural cause such as the pandemic, such as the flooding, housing, migrants, and schools that cause learning disruption. How do we knowingly cause learning disruption to our students? Many policy is written in a way that leaves things up for interpretation. I'm not comfortable with the class size working group's recommendation of capping enrollment because that says out loud and clear that we will disrupt our families. Starting from kindergarten, we will have wait lists. Right here in District 20, you guys are getting new schools. You're all excited. You're all relieving the crowded schools, right? This is how it should be. Build, then move the students, not move the students to the next under-enrolled school, which could be nowhere in District 20. Every school is crowded. A parent/teacher in District 22 voiced that she was worried that her child's ICT class will be affected. She was worried that once implemented, many ICT students would be declassified because there won't be enough special ed teachers. Special ed teachers are very hard to hire, so her concern is valid. It's not right for community members to demoralize her for being concerned and not wanting smaller class size in place of her children's education needs not being met. This needs to be done strategically as outlined in the minority report. We need to show that it's something worth the investment to do, starting with the group of young students that will benefit the most, building a strong foundation. If you don't know what kindergarten wait lists look like, can you imagine getting a call at the end of kindergarten that they can return to their zone school in first grade? If we support capping enrollment, many families will be shut out of their zone schools, and the long-term effect can stretch out to AP classes, dual language programs, electives, etc. being affected. Someone mentioned their child is in a class of 32 seats. If classes get cut to 20 seats, where are the other 12 children going? We need more capacity and more teachers. We don't have the money, the capacity, or the teachers. Even if we have the money to build capacity, it's not going to happen in 5 years because we can't even build a building in 5 years. The answer isn't simply fully funding the schools. We're going to lose funding per the law if we don't get it done in 5 years. Now, are you willing to lose funds for D75?
2.5 minutes, speaker.
Yes.
You can finish up.
Are you willing to lose funds for D75 students to support lowering class size for all? Are you willing to volunteer your child to attend an under-enrolled school maybe a mile away? These are the trade-offs we all have to think about. Please support the District 20 resolution, how to approach this law in a better way. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll go to a few more in-person speakers. First one is Yatin Chu.
Thank you for allowing us to speak again. I have so much to say about class size, but in addition to all of the space constraints we have to send kids to our local schools and to reduce school capacity to be filled, I'm also very concerned about things that District 20 needs to rely on. This just recently expanded the number of eligible screen programs. This is a district that you're speaking about accelerated opportunities. In town programs, specialized high schools, AP classes, you can be sure that all of those classes and offers will be cut. There are parents, middle school parents that are very, very worried that all the specialized high schools will have to cut their incoming seats by 20%. We're already short on seats across the board, but you can be sure that principals will be mandated to cut the number of offers that they can give to high school bound kids. That's across the board. These are precious seats that many parents want more of. And once they get into these schools, they want AP courses. And unfortunately, once that's capped, they won't have AP courses either. So I get it. I, as a parent, would love to have smaller class sizes, but the trade-offs are really high, and I really want this council to think hard about supporting the amendments, supporting the amended resolution, and even more importantly, as Councilmember Elizabeth Chan asked whether this will change the law. No, it won't. It certainly will help air out our public opinion about concerns, but I would say that all of us here need to speak to our electeds. Assemblymember Lester Chang was here. There was Senator Ewan Chu's rep that was there. There is Assemblymember Colton. These are all of the elected officials in Albany that was responsible for passing this law. And please don't listen to parents that say, oh, it's a law, you have to do it. No, laws are created to be improved upon, to be amended, and even to be repealed. So don't think passing the law is, oh, we need to do it, it's a law. No, the law was passed in the middle of the night over Memorial Day weekend, and as Deputy Chancellor Weisberg said, there was no input from the public, from parents, from teachers, from educators. And we need to get this law amended right away. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Yifeng Chen.
Do you need a microphone? Because it doesn't sound that well. Like it's not as clear. If needed, we can use it.
Yeah, sure, I'll have it.
Okay.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank I want to thank CC20. Like all of you stay out like 4 hours. And like parents like myself and my team, we also stay here a couple times for hours. So people online, please don't complain. So I'm here to support the class size resolution that CC20 is going to go over. So while small class size is an appealing concept, with all things equal, of course as a parent, I would want small class size. But it becomes a really challenging issue in the context of financial resources, teacher resources in New York City. I give you an example. Like my son, he attends middle school. So right now, the school is so easy on teachers. They couldn't find teachers. So instead of having these like usual language classes and other classes, they're doing like enrichment classes. I don't even know what that is. And like next year, the principal is like looking desperately to find replacement language teachers that left during the pandemic. So additionally, I just want to say that a minority working group report which highlights the correlation between school overcrowding and student performance in both reading and math. I mean, I understand in the chat people say, oh, you know, like correlation is not causation. Yes, that's right. So, you know, like small class size may not be the determining factor of student performance and vice versa, but correlation does tell you something. And I also want to point out, like President Steve already said, in the early days, small class size when they was implemented in California, go back and look at the historical data. Okay, history. You can look at the real historical data and see, you know, what is working and what is not working. In that sense, I think if we want to really do the class size mandate, start from, you know, pre-K, maybe K, and also start with, you know, under enrollment, underperformed, under enrolled schools, and see what can be improved there. Okay, thank you so much.
Interpreters have noted if people could speak without the microphone, our interpreters have noted it's easier to hear without the microphone. So we'll try that. Next speaker, Hong Tao. So try without it if it's okay. Kevin, one sec. Kevin, is that you think that's okay for people online? Should be able to. Okay, yeah, go ahead, Hong.
Yes, today I was listening to this meeting. I feel very glad to hear many of the view and the parents' voices, and also from the educator and administrators. I feel like many of our voices are heard about the safety, the children's safety, the no bullying, and I think that's still our first priority. Not for recently what happened is still our priority, not first, but our priority. And then for class size, someone said, oh, this just class size compared to the safety shouldn't be an issue here, but we do think this way. Just now, one parent said like, oh, they are looking forward the new classroom, the new schools, but I think other parents might have concern like in the new classroom or new school because the class size cut and they are also not ready. Seems the fund not ready. The teacher resources, we don't know yet. And I don't think you also know very well, but if it could really apply from what I hear tonight. So think about other parents and many parents were worried about if their kids will get a seat in that new classroom or new school. So that's the same concern as other parents looking forward to have a smaller class size, or actually everyone wanted the better education resources, like smaller classes, better teacher, good teacher, qualified teachers, and a better program. But if this class size cut, this policy will have a big impact on those, on the parents, on the student admissions for those screen programs and qualified programs, which might be cut. So I think that's equally very important issues. Like your administrators and should consider and should find some way to lobby to the politics, to the those councilmen or mayor. So I hope we are all expecting to see this thing to be solved in thoughtful way. Yeah, thank you. I thank you for tonight's long hours, everyone. I think Thank you much.
That's it, right?
That concludes our public speaking. We'll now move on to resolution 7. And as the sponsor, I'll share my screen on that.
Some questions, Dave.
Yeah, one second, Elizabeth. And what we'll do is I'll just make a few opening comments on the reso as it's like I said, I'm the sponsor, and then we'll go in order and we'll go in turn. And I'll ask people to sort of, either raise their hands or ask me, and then we'll comment. There'll be time to make a statement, and then at some point we'll move on to a vote. So this is obviously a major issue. There's obviously a lot of interest in this. Briefly speaking, I just want to make a point, which is I served on the working, and we spent months and months discussing and deliberating, and we are no closer to truly understanding the nuts and bolts of implementation than we were when we started. There's a majority report which recommends implementing the law, and you've heard many supporters tonight speak about doing whatever it takes to implement the law. And then there's the minority report. I don't have the answers, by the way. I was blown away by the complexity of what implementing this law would mean for schools in any number of ways. What principals will have to do with classrooms and numbers, and potentially moving kids around and looking at a district and zoning. The other issues we talked about with lack of teachers, and then of course funding, and where does that come from? This law is an amendment to the class size law. It is not a repeal of the class size law. It is simply saying, let's slow down the process. Let's make it something that will achieve positive outcomes based on what the research says, and something that can be implemented without the DOE being penalized, the financial penalties. It's an amendment that will hopefully address the real needs in the system. There have been a number of comments tonight about there are other benefits other than academic performance. Of course there are. No one disputes that. We all want small class sizes if we had the choice. And that's in fact the first section in this resolution says, whereas parents, including those who support this resolution, want smaller classes. But it's really a mistake to make it mandatory across the city without any funding. And there are points made that, oh, this is part of the campaign for fiscal equity, and we got a bunch of money to reduce class size. That money is already budgeted. That money is in the DOE budget right now, funding teachers, programs, but the class size law adds on top of that. And so I just want people to be aware that there's no new funding for this law. And that's a huge issue that schools are going to have to grapple with and wrestle with over the years to come. And it will affect families. I'm not going to go through this resolution in too much depth. I've talked about some of the other studies that have been done on class size research. And the other, especially important, I think, are other state experiences. California, Florida, both tried it. Neither one has demonstrated gains from it. California scrapped theirs. The social emotional gains, no one has a way of measuring those. We can talk and debate about that all night long. I see there's lots of comments in the chat about that. That's part of the narrative. Nobody knows for sure the benefits on qualitative things like social emotional learning in classes. And again, we do want small classes if we can get them. I just want to go to the end here, because this is really where I think it should hit home for District 20 parents in districts that are already very crowded. This is a map showing our elementary schools, and this is in red shows the schools that are 75 to 100% of their classes are over the cap. So these are the schools that if we start to reduce class size, they'll have to send some of their families to other schools. And if you look at this map, you might, sort of naturally look at, where would they go? Well, some of the schools are in yellow. Those are 50 to 74% over the cap. doing a little better, but still the majority of their classes are over the cap. And then you have some schools in blue. We don't have any schools that are green in District 20, in which under 25% of our classes are over the cap. So almost all of our schools majority of our classes are over the cap. This is going to result in a massive, movement of families and students further away from their zoned elementary schools. And we know that's especially important to parents at the elementary school level, having a neighborhood zone school that you can easily get to. One parent I've spoken to, I heard from in the course of getting feedback on this, talks about the grandparents. Many of our immigrant families have grandparents taking their children to school with immigrant parents working, often early in the morning. And if you're talking about having families needing to go further away for schools, elementary schools, is that really that's going to be a significant challenge for perhaps non-English speaking immigrant grandparents bringing their kids to a school 2 or 3 miles away as opposed to the neighborhood zone school. So those are the only comments I'll make on the resolution. Amend the class size law. Let's do it in a way that makes sense based on the research and that won't hurt our schools financially and that will be good for our families in District 20. Any other council members want to speak? And I'll stop sharing now so I can see everyone. Any other council members like to speak on this resolution?
I wanted to ask, what is C4A funding? Where does it come from?
Yeah, that's the contracts for excellence. And that comes from the campaign for fiscal equity that was referred to many times tonight. It's a part of state foundation aid. And it's specifically targeted, among other things, to reduce class size. And that this was, at this point, I think it was 2 decades ago that this law was passed and this funding was created, this sort of carve out of state foundation aid. And so that we have an annual presentation. I don't know if anyone remembers it, but every year someone comes around and talks about how C4E funding is being used both in the city and in the district. It can be used to reduce class size. It can go to, there's 4 or 5 other categories it can be used on. So it's part of the funding. But again, like I said before, it's not new funding. It's already baked into the budget for this year. So it's in our school's budget this year. And every year it gets reappropriated as part of the state aid.
So the individual schools will lose that funding if we don't reach our goals.
No.
Do you want to?
No, they won't lose the funding. What I think I'm here, it's the funding exists and is allocated to schools every year. What I think I hear you saying is that there will be additional funding needed on top of that in order to be able to comply with the mandates. That's what I hear Steve saying. But what the contract for excellence money that is currently allocated to schools does come from the state and does continue to be allocated to schools every year.
The only impact you might have, Elizabeth, is if you have schools where enrollment is capped and they have lower number of kids going there, funding goes by the student in New York City. And so some of those schools will lose funding if enrollment is capped and students have to be moved to other schools.
Oh, and we see page 3 of the your resolution. Could you take out the urban institute portion since people say it's a lot of questionable data that they're giving up?
No, I will not do that. Urban Institute is very well respected policy think tank, many years of policy research. So I'm definitely going to keep the Urban Institute in there.
And I don't know. So do you want, will we revise that, the last sentence?
Sorry, which sentence, Elizabeth?
Has noted that a recent report citing that the reductions would occur in higher income and predominantly white and Asian schools. I kind of don't like that you, put predominantly white and Asian schools because, I just feel it's just much harder as long as people want to add that. So could we just put it to higher income and live there?
Well, that's in their report. Like that wasn't my finding. That was the Urban Institute's finding. And I think that's an important point, Elizabeth, because it gets to the issue of you know, as Matt and the Urban Institute has pointed out, if you're concerned about equity and, you know, you're looking through it through the lens of, you know, the different groups in the city, this will result in more funding coming to districts that are predominantly white and Asian, and on a per capita or per student basis, it will result in less going to districts where you have tend to have a majority of Black and Hispanic students. And that's the Urban Institute's research, and it's borne out by you know, the data that we've seen from the DOE. So it's important to be in there because it does get to this. There was another individual on the working group, Ia Bryant from the Education Trust, and they're also a very pro sort of pro equity research organization, and she's one of the dissenters from the working group final report. Same, you know, same concern as expressed here. So I think it's important to put that in there.
The line, it makes other at our district feel like we're a certain way that they imagine us, and our thinking is kind of closed-minded as opposed to other councils and the deal. I just want to put that out there.
I wouldn't confuse. Okay, thanks. That's fine. I hear
you. To other people, members that are talking in the public about this council being an embarrassment, like we had 2-3 hours of speaking so that parents can get their, and other stakeholders could get their voices out there. So I'm not embarrassed to be part of this. Just information.
Thanks, Elizabeth. I'm not embarrassed either. Any other council members want to speak on the resolution? And of course, if anyone would like to make a motion to vote on the resolution, that can be done. Okay, so John, was there a motion? Motion to vote. Is there a second to?
Second.
Great. Joyce, can you take a roll call vote to approve Resolution 7, amend the class size law?
Yes.
Kevin, can she be heard? She's heard. We can hear her online, right?
Yeah, you're answering, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna call a vote for resolution calling for state legislature to amend the class size law. Anyway, is there even the council member can make a comment? You can make a comment before you vote. So Steve?
I vote yes.
John?
Yes.
Elizabeth?
I vote yes because the majority of parents in CC 20 want this amendment. So I'm going to vote yes.
Joyce? Yes. And before I want to add some comment because we have a lot of issue on funding. So a lot of people say we're gonna fight for the funding. And you know how hard is it? Because every time you can look at the US debt clock, there's a more than 34 trillion US debt already. So do you think we or not, how you increase the funding for DOE, print the money? That costs a lot. That's why increase inflation. So the funding part is like most difficult one. And I speak to the some overcrowded school principal for the school space. So we need a concern about, we need to sacrifice our classroom, music room, or other program to find a space for the classroom to fit on the class size law. So that's why I vote yes, because in our district, that's very hard because our district is different. The law is, I know it's mandate, but we can be amended. It's not gonna be for every district. So it's depend on district. So we just want for this district 20, we're gonna amend this law. So hopefully we will reach on the politician about senator and city council. We need to fight for that because law is present for people. But if the law is not suitable for our people, we need to speak up. That's why I encourage for our district 20s all parent. One parent, we say one parent, you got is limit. But if we got all the district on fight for that, I think our government will hear from us. Every country is depend on people. So people
made the power, okay? Not the government made the power, it's people. So that's why I vote yes. Mei Fun?
Yes, I vote yes because they have the 3 points of the this issue. If the class no small class size law is if the first point is if we have the no like the quality the teacher is the immunity give the teacher more teacher for that. And then this is our parents' concern because we sent the kids, they want to like help them. They have the like quality, the teacher can teach the kids be grateful. And then the second point is where is the funding the funding, where it be? That is will be a big problem. And then the third one is if the class know how about other students at the so if the size is cut down, and then right now we have the 30 almost 32 to 32 people student in the class. So how about others if the class cut down to like a 20 or like around 20 something like that. So I think so I vote yes. So that's why the reason of that. Thank you.
Wenmin? Yes. Yanqing? Yes. You? Maya is excused. Tamara?
No, I vote no. And this does not represent all of District 20.
Speaking, I think she's trying to, I think she
So-
wants to speak a little bit. Hold on, Tamara, 1 second. Tamara, did you want to speak? We can hear you now.
I said my vote is no. And this resolution does not represent all of District 20. It doesn't. So that's, I'm gonna end.
The funding is a big issue over there. And so far, we heard about people say there is funding, but we haven't seen anything come to that. And second thing, as we see on the map, the resolutions attached in the resolution, there's no school in our district will fit the number of the students. And that means we are going to send our children to much farther away, which is not suitable, and especially for younger ones. And the third one is, our students' performance in this 20 shows that the number of students in the classroom is not at least it's not the main reasons for the underperformance across the city today. So that's the reason I want to vote yes for this resolution.
So we have 8 yes, 1 excuse, 1 no. Resolution is passed.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, everyone. The last item on the calendar meeting is the approval of the December calendar meeting minutes and the special meeting minutes. Kevin, can you share the minutes? So please review the minutes. Kevin, can you zoom in a little bit on that? And if anyone has any changes to the minutes, please speak up. Any changes to the December calendar meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none, the minutes are approved. Now we'll review the special meeting minutes and approve those. Any changes to the special meeting minutes? Okay, the minutes are approved. Is there a motion? We will now adjourn the calendar meeting, and right after this, we will just start our business meeting. So is there a motion to adjourn the calendar meeting?
Second.
Is there a second? All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, the calendar